I'd like to call to order the April 8th public hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome everyone. I'm Ted Kempton, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff will then submit their report. We will then ask for public comment. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the commissioners will ask questions in the same order as the presentation. Next, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. After the public hearing is closed, no further testimony can be given. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the following: Chapter 27 of the City Code of Ordinances, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review Committee comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence cell phones. And I'll start on my left with the introduction of commissioners.
Elena Ketchum, Attorney Representative.
John Prokop, I practice architecture.
Brian Hammond, architect.
Dan Myers, architect.
Good evening, I'm Carol Post, I'm the Public Policy Representative, thank you.
Okay. Also in attendance, we have city staff: Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Elaine Lund, Jared Barnum, and our attorney, Dana Crosby Collier.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. At this time, we'll let legal address the board.
Good evening, Dana Crosby Collier from the Legal Department. Does any member have a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this evening?
I have none.
Okay, great. And has any member engaged in ex parte communication regarding an item on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you.
Moving down the agenda, there are no continuations reflected on tonight's meeting, so we'll move to the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify, including staff, please stand up and raise your right hand. I see some people signing in. If you wait 1 minute, maybe we could get them to be sworn in as well. Just raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony being provided today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Commissioners, our first agenda item is ARC-26-000060. This is for the address of 1401 Nance Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. It has two phases to the application this evening, so we're going to focus on the demolition. The agent and the owner are aware of that. Please keep all your questions to the demolition. We have a handout that after I do my presentation, I'll go ahead and distribute those to everybody. Once the demolition has a motion on it, and if it is able to move forward with this night's agenda, we'll go to the new construction of the accessory structure. The underlying zoning is RS 60. The contributing structures were built circa 1923. Both of them are contributing, and the styles are craftsman. You have the report to follow here on your paperwork in your packets. They are going to present additional information with the exhibits, as I stated. And at this time, I'd like to go through the photo presentation. This is the Sanborn map that dates back to 1929. If we could get that focus, please. Thank you. Property in question is highlighted in the circle. I do want to zoom in to show that there is the primary structure that's there, and there is the accessory structure, the one-story accessory structure in the green box as well. Moving forward, this is the vicinity map I like to illustrate this so you see where the property is within the whole district of Hyde Park. It's on the corner of Nance and Hills. You see Howard that runs north and south to the west to give you a sense of place. And once again, this is an aerial that shows the same thing, that you are on the corner of Nance and Hills, highlighted with the green box. Focus on the primary structure. It's a two-story structure, high-end craftsman style. That's the front elevation that faces Nance. This is the front elevation and the south elevation. Property that butts to the south is this contributing structure. Moving around to the north, this is the front and this is the north facade. I wanted to share this with you as well. This is a shot from the corner of Nance and Hills showing that the house and the parcel is encapsulated with a retaining wall. There is no vehicular entrance off of Nance. All the vehicular movement is off of Hills to the south. And as we work toward the accessory structure, that's what we're focusing on this evening. You see the apron as the approach comes off of Hills. You see some of the challenges of the placement of the structure. It encroaches or is real close, and it doesn't meet any today's setbacks. We were out, we took some pictures of the site. You're gonna see a lot of pictures this evening as well. But this is the slab inside the accessory structure. This is some of the framing that's inside. Some of the challenges that the structure has on the roof and the ceiling. Again, some of the work that's there now, and the agent will go through all of this with you. Just to conclude on the interior photos that we took there. Moving around to the exterior. Obviously, this is the garage door that faces Hills, and then you have, this is the internal side. As this is as well as the internal side. This is the rear of the accessory structure. And this concludes the photo presentation. This is the rear as well. At this time, I'm gonna call up the agent and the owner to address the board just on the demolition as I stated, and I'm gonna hand out the packets at this time.
Thank you, Ron.
Good. Yep. Good evening, Commissioners. Alex Shaler, 400 North Ashley Drive with the law firm of Gardner Brewer Hudson. I am here representing the property owner and applicant, Patton Chilura, who's here to answer questions after this presentation as well. As Ron mentioned, this is part one of a two-part presentation. This is the demolition portion, and if we are fortunate enough to gain your approval there, we'd like to continue on to the new construction, which is a replacement accessory structure that's fully compliant with the Land Development Code. So throughout this presentation, I'll address the 5 different burden of proof criteria, and then I'll move on to the economic hardship section and go through all 13 of those criteria as well. But before we jump into the details, I wanted to give you all a little bit of context about this overall application. My client, the applicant, purchased this property back in February of 2025. As you can see here, this is a 2-story Craftsman bungalow that is being fully renovated so that we can make that livable. But this property has undergone some neglect over the years, and especially in regards to the accessory structure. This is not something that the applicant has done. Again, this was an inherited condition of that accessory structure. So I just wanted to frame the presentation in the sense that we are preservationists at heart. That's why we're preserving the main structure and making that, renovating that and making that livable. But the accessory structure is just a bridge too far to cross here. And I'm gonna explain exactly why that is structurally and economically in the coming slides. So the first criteria, we have to provide competent substantial evidence for the burden of proof. The first one is alternatives to demo. I'm gonna switch back and forth between the PowerPoint and the overhead, so bear with me on some of these transitions. The first alternative asks us to consider, is there any alternative methods such as a zoning or a land use designation? So I wanted to start out by saying this is zoned RS60. This is obviously a single family detached home with an accessory structure. As you can see here, by definition, PDs are meant to accommodate sites that have either physical constraints, so think wetlands or larger water bodies that require a different design, or a mixture of different land uses. So we do PDs a lot for our mixed use projects, both horizontally and vertically, because those require different kind of parking requirements and et cetera. So more complex sites. So by definition, this site is not suitable for a PD. And as some of you may be aware, the city is in the process of updating the land development code. And one of those proposed changes to the code is to establish a minimum acreage for PDs. So that minimum area is going to be 1 acre. So that's just something to keep in mind, because I think you'll see that come before this board in terms of these kind of applications in the future, that these will be no longer eligible for PDs. So that is the first one. I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so moving on to the structural report, that is included in your binders as Exhibit A. And in that report, there are some highlights here shown on the screen. This is not meant to be a comprehensive list. There are far more included in the report, but these are kind of the main ones. So the building is visibly buckling from side to side. You can probably see that in some of the photos that Ron showed, and probably some of the ones in the presentation. The structural report noted that 50% of the roof rafters and 60% of the wall studs show up to severe deterioration. That's from moisture, rot, insect damage, et cetera, again, over the years. The wall studs are 100% overstressed under the FBC loads, and no uplift strapping and no meaningful anchorage to the foundation exist. And that's really important, because when you go to take this a step further in terms of what retention would require, we would be required to replace 80% of all the roof rafters, 80% of all the wall studs, install 100% uplift strapping throughout the entire structure, full removal and replacement of the concrete slab, and construct an entirely new retrofit concrete foundation. So many of you are architects. I don't need to serve this to you on a silver platter, but that's essentially us constructing a new building within the shell of the old one. So I wanted to point that out. And I do have, let's see, I'll switch back here. These are some of the excerpts from the structural report. Again, this is in your package, but I wanted to show these on the screen here that reinforce some of the points on the PowerPoint. As mentioned, there's some other ones in here as well. I just took some of the main points. Okay, let's see. Here we go. These quotes are pulled directly from the structural report. The existing garage building is unsafe in its current condition, and it is at risk of imminent collapse. And you'll hear me mention that a couple more times throughout the presentation as it relates to safety. Structural reframing and retrofitting would be required for all structural systems. The cost of the repairs would be significantly more than the value of the building in its existing condition. And this is, again, a recommendation prepared by the structural engineer. This is not the preference of the applicant, but the structural engineer does not believe it's financially feasible to retrofit the existing garage building that exists on site today. The next criteria asks that we consider whether relocation is appropriate and feasible. And this is very similar to the zoning and the land use alternative. This building is already buckling under its static load, so that makes relocating the building physically impossible. And again, this is a building has many structural deficiencies, and changing the location doesn't fix that. We would still be required to rehab 80 to 100% of the structure, as shown in the recommendations in the structural report. The next criteria asks about our ability to build a replacement within a reasonable period. As mentioned, this is part 1 of 2 of our presentation tonight. So we do have architectural plans prepared for a replacement accessory structure. We'd be delighted to share those with you all. Those are also in your binder if you'd like to take a look at them before. But as Ron mentioned, we're going to focus on the demo with this, so I won't go into detail on those now. We also had a construction budget that was prepared for the replacement. That is here, and there's a second page, which I'll put up in just a minute. So that total is $943,654.88. That includes the renovations to the main structure as well as the replacement of the garage. So I will note that. Main structure, okay. It's just the main structure, stand corrected, no garage cost in that. The rehab estimate, the next criteria is we're tasked with considering whether demo is justified as an economic hardship. And this is a great segue into the rest of the presentation, which focuses primarily on economic hardship. So we had a quote prepared by Keene Contractors. That was a rehab estimate of $147,000. I will show that on the dot cam. Again, this was prepared based on the recommendations from the structural report, all of the different components that we would need to replace. And that's one factor of two in terms of looking at economic hardship. Again, I'm going to get into this in a bit more detail, but we had an appraisal prepared as well. That's also in your packet as an exhibit. That appraisal looked at the hypothetical condition of the renovations to the main structure, as well as the demo of the current garage and replacement with a new accessory structure garage. So I will note that in the appraisal, the current garage is assigned a $0 value because it's contemplated as being demoed. So I do also have documentation from the property appraiser's office that assigns that existing structure a value of $6,718. And I'll show that here. So that is the current existing structure. So again, if we're looking at a quote to rehab of $147,000, the existing garage is worth $6,718. That's almost 22x the rehab cost would be of the garage's current value today. And then taking that a step further, so while there is that $147,000 investment cost in the rehab, you all are very familiar with this as being sitting on this board. As you know, the maintenance costs are perpetually higher, and those tend to compound over time with these historic structures, and that's replacement of specialized materials. It's certain contractors that work on these historic structures. So again, you're not only making a one-time investment in the rehab, but that does tend to compound as the years go on for the property owner, and that makes it an additional economic hardship. So moving on to the economic hardship section, again, I'll address all 13 different criteria of this one as well. The first asks that we provide a cost of the demolition. That is here. So that cost is $4,000 for the demo, and then all of the breakdown of what that includes is shown there on the screen. And I think it's important to note that I have the financial numbers here on the screen, but this is what is so much more significant than the financial values in comparison here is the opportunity cost that's associated with the demolition. So while the demolition is the $4,000, it also clears the path for a new structure that's code compliant, that's structurally safe, and that we can keep in the neighborhood for the next 100 years. So I want that to be a factor of consideration as well. Again, structural feasibility report, I've been through this, and that is also in your packet. That's what the cover page of that looks like. Again, that's Exhibit A. And to sum up the structural report, we've already been through some of it, but I did want to note some additional points. Everything from the burden of proof section still applies here in terms of economic hardship. There's a lot of crossover there. But the first section I wanted to address was the structural soundness. So as mentioned, this building has been deemed unsafe and at risk of imminent collapse. Again, these are all of the major structural systems of this structure are failing. So this isn't something where we can patchwork into a replacement and rehab this building. Again, this is failing comprehensively. Again, these are the same notations from the prior section. I can put those back on the screen so you can see them. Here's another picture. This is an aerial view of the accessory structure. In terms of considering the suitability of rehab, we've been over that one as well. It's not financially feasible, but as mentioned in the structural report, it's also not recommended by the structural engineer from a safety perspective. The next portion is a certified appraisal. Again, this was prepared as a hypothetical, and that is also in your packet. This is a page of that. You can see that. And the appraisal shows that post-renovation value, market value of the property will be 1.98 million. There's that on the screen there. Again, I've already shown you this rehab quote, but I'll put this back on the screen again. The economic feasibility of rehab or reuse. This is the quote that was prepared here, $147,000 for the rehab. And I think it's important to note too, in terms of the rehab, that the $147,000, if you break that down by the square footage cost based on the size of the structure, it's $323 a square foot, which is pretty high for a replacement cost. That's semi-mirroring new construction. And the reason that this is important is because the estimate to rehab, this is currently a one-story structure. Per code, this is actually should be 22.5, but per code you can build up to a 22.5 foot accessory structure in the historic district. So not only is this structurally failing, but we're also not utilizing the full square footage that we could be to give the property owner a little bit more livable space here on the property. Here's some of the financing terms. That's criteria E. So the purchaser, again, is the applicant Pat Chalura. The purchase price was $950,000. That was back in February of 2025. I have the seller's name up there too, as well as was an arm's length transaction, and this was an all cash transaction too. There was no financing contingency. I have the purchase contract here, which I'll show you. That shows that figure there, and then I've highlighted this portion regarding the financing. And this is the deed as well, for reference. This is a collection of the next criteria here. Again, some more financing information. This is not an income producing property. Again, this was an all cash transaction. I've shown you the certified appraisal. That's also in your binder. And just to confirm, the property was not offered for sale 12 months prior to the applicant going under contract to purchase the property. This is the assessed value based off the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's website. Back in 2024, $507,106. The 2025 assessed value is $819,400 based on the sale. Again, I have that existing market value per HCPA for the accessory structure specifically at $6,718. And then that same statistic I shared a little bit earlier about that being 22 times, the rehab being 22 times the garage's current assessed value per the property appraiser. These were the taxes from the last 2 years. In 2024, $8,944.33. In 2025, $16,363.83. And this is another thing that I believe is kind of a two-factor comparison here, because the demolition and the replacement with a new code-compliant accessory structure, not only will it increase the assessed value of the property, but you're also eliminating that ongoing liability in the burden of maintenance costs that will justify an economic hardship for the applicant. Form of ownership of the property is the next criteria. This is fee simple ownership. It is intended to be the applicant's primary residence once the renovations are complete to the main structure. And again, this is not income producing. And I think that it's really important to note that, you know, we go through all of these criteria because we want to arm you all with all of the stats and the financial data and kind of all the information that you need to make a decision. But I think it dehumanizes the process a little bit. This is a young applicant who's dreamed of living in the historic district in Hyde Park. He's bought this home again and is doing right by preserving the main structure and renovating it to really, you know, bring up the neighborhood. And we do have some letters of support from the neighborhood. I believe those are in your package as well, from some of the neighbors that are in support of doing this. But as mentioned earlier, you know, we're doing the best we can to preserve the main structure, but this accessory structure, as you can see from the photos, was a little bit too far gone when we inherited it. So I'll note that. Another point is that in the staff report, this is just some additional information that I'm sharing here at the end outside of the criteria. Staff did determine that this would equate to an economic hardship based off of the information that we had put into the record, the information that's also in your binders. And then to close, I just wanted to note a couple things. Ron had mentioned this earlier very briefly, and I want to go into a little bit more detail. This doesn't fit neatly into any of the specific criteria, but I think it's really worth noting because I think it covers a combination of them in whole. So the way that the existing structure is positioned today, it's currently non-compliant in terms of the required setback. So as you can see, I've highlighted here on the screen, the front setback should be 15, it's only 10. Again, the right side setback is also not complying with what is required based on current code. And then taking that a step further, it's also not compliant in terms of required parking. So the City of Tampa's Land Development Code requires 2 spaces for single-family detached dwellings. If you were to park a car in this garage right now, which you would not do unless you were okay with potentially losing it, you could fit 1 car here on site. But more notably is the fact that this existing driveway that's shown here doesn't have the depth to accommodate the length of a full vehicle. So right now, your second car would be parking over the sidewalk. That obviously produces all kinds of liability, most notably ADA. This is a picture here. I think this was from 2024, but as you can see, that's where the entrance to the accessory structure is, and that car is well over the sidewalk. So, and I say all that because we are 100% confident that we can come up with a code-compliant replacement accessory structure, and that's what's shown here on the screen. Like I said, if we are fortunate enough to gain your approval on this demolition portion, we believe and feel very confident that we can construct this new garage within the allowable setbacks, and we can also provide a driveway with a longer depth to accommodate a second vehicle there on site. That's really all I have. I know you all are faced with a tough decision on these demolitions, but I'd like to note that I think this is a very site-specific case, and we respectfully request that you consider all the information we provided, and we are more than happy to answer questions you might have.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure. Do you want to say something?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Pat Intriller. I'm the applicant. I'm a 4th-generation Tampanian. I've worked on historic renovations and historic projects in the Tampa Heights Historic ARC, the Ybor City Barrio Latino, and the Hyde Park ARC as well, both personally and professionally. My grandfather's an architect. I'm a Tampanian. I was drawn and I purchased this property because I love Hyde Park Village and I love the historic fabric of what that is. Like Alex pointed out, we're spending 4 times probably the value of the existing improvements on the property in terms of the renovation. We're trying to do it the right way. The intention originally was never to tear the garage down; it was to renovate it in place. But as we've started to do a little bit of work, it's to the point where it is now. The property was not maintained by the previous owner, and it was not maintained by the owner before that. I have friends that have grown up in this neighborhood for the last 33 years now. Gosh, that's scary. And they told me how this house, their entire lives, was the haunted house. I have a letter from the next door neighbor who has lived in that house as a child, and he purchased it from his father. He said the same thing. He watched it deteriorate through 2 separate owners. His parents actually bought it, renovated, sold it, and then watched it deteriorate again. We're doing everything we can to bring it back and put it in the right position. The garage is something that, it's a small structure and something that we'd really appreciate if you would consider giving us the opportunity to do it the right way. So, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila. I am a planner with Historic Preservation. In your packet, there are 4 letters of support. Moving forward. This is a finding of fact. They put a lot of information into the record. I'll go through a little bit of it now, but the majority of it is in your packets. They have their professional here as well to answer any questions, and then you could ask the agent to come back up again. Staff's finding is the submission for demolition reviews satisfies the submission requirements in Chapter 27, 116F, 1 and 3, per the exhibit submitted on March 17, 2026. The submission for new construction and site improvements are consistent with the Hyde Park Design Guidelines. We looked at that on the same date, March 17th, 2026. The administrator's report is on page 10. I'm going to go through that briefly. But based on the information and exhibits provided, is the ARC's administrator's determination that the rehabilitation of the existing accessory structure that is necessary to remedy the structural deficiencies as described in the structural report, and that report is Exhibit A. We looked at that report on February 9th, 2026. To bring it in a condition that would comply with the Florida Building Code would equate to an economic hardship. They provided some numbers for you. 80% to 100% of the fabric there would have to be replaced to meet the Florida Building Code. As I stated, the professionals here, they were submitted some numbers of the cost. That was the burden of proof and the information that is needed to provide. They went through that very quickly, but it's there for your reviewing. And in summary, it's the administrator's opinion that based upon the substantial and competent evidence submitted into the record that the economic hardship will be established in rehabilitating the structure in accordance with the structural engineer's recommendation, and it is the preservation standards while achieving compliance with the Florida Building Code. I just wanted to echo, I put this into the record initially to show some of the challenges they have on site. As I illustrated before, that all the vehicular access is done in the back. There is no penetrations through the retaining wall. The historic retaining wall is going to be rehabbed through part of the discussion that we're having with them. And as you focus on the rear, that compounds some of the problems that they have here. From the property line to the vehicular entrance, they need 18 foot to park 2 cars on site. They're going to park 1 car inside the accessory structure if it's possible, and then 1 behind that so it does not block the sidewalk. That's transportation standards. As it sits today, it doesn't meet any standards. Then also, just how it sits on the site violates setbacks, encroachments, and things of that nature. That's the report that is in the record, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Ron. Is there anyone in the public that's here to speak for or against the demolition of this structure? Sir, if you'll state your name and address.
Hi, how are you? My name is Pasquale Cavella. I live at 1405 Nance Avenue. We lived at South Dundee for 30 plus years, flooded, and now we're at 21 feet. So we moved to the neighborhood. I own other property in Hyde Park. Neighborhood is tremendous. Having these guys as a neighbor is going to be just unbelievably great. The house, when I first saw it, I bought my house about almost 11 months ago. And I looked at that house. It was not for me. And I got to tell you, I see them working every day because I walk the dog, and the job that they're doing is just incredible. It was an eyesore, and that's going to be a beauty. And I just hope you give them everything they're asking for. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Okay, not seeing anybody. I'll start on my right. Questions from the commissioners?
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, very thorough. I do have a few questions for the applicant. Can you comment on, so you said it was purchased in 2025. I think the submission actually says December 24, but give or take, let's say it's been a year or so. Can you just comment on the condition of it when you bought it? That was a year plus. And in that is what efforts, if any, you alluded a little bit to it, but I'd like if you could just elaborate on what efforts, if any, you did to initially try to restore it.
So when we purchased the property, I believe the previous, I guess not important how it got to that condition, but the previous owner who had passed away, it was kind of sitting in a transition as to who was going to take ownership of it. At that time, there was a considerable amount of vegetation that grew all over the property. When we acquired it, we cleaned up the whole property, pulling like creeping vines off of the entire thing. I think you can see it in some of the photos that there's still vines on the inside of the property. It resulted in a considerable amount of damage. When we kicked off kind of the renovation of the project, I basically, brought in the structural engineer, structural engineer in the GC, and showed them the condition of the property, and showed them the 4-point inspection that I had done when I acquired the property. And they laughed at me and told me that I should go get my money back because basically the footer was deteriorating, the slab was deteriorating, and there was almost nothing you could do. Since then, there was a little bit of exploration into what we could do with the roof of the building. And as you started touching it, the whole thing fell apart like tissue paper. And from the roof rafters, there's considerable amount of termite damage on top of all of the rafters that's actually not even visible to the eye. So, we kind of just put it to the side. So, it was one of those things where you start opening up the can of worms, just like the house. Alex showed the budget of $943,000 for the improvements. We are probably halfway done, and we're already $300,000 over budget. So, this was kind of leave it alone. Don't open up the can of worms, because that can of worms we're being told is going to cost $150,000. And my GC that's working on the main house has told me I won't even do it. So.
Understood. Welcome to renovation in the district.
Oh yeah.
I live around the corner. I'm very familiar with the house.
Yeah.
And appreciate what you're trying to do. One other question. Thank you for that. Your representative talked a lot about the economic hardship, the quantitative aspects, the lost opportunity or the opportunity cost. And there's a lot of quantitative, I think you said, sort of dehumanizing aspect to this exercise. But I think it is important. First of all, I think it's important to know how it got here, which is not your concern. It's a different conversation, but it's an important one. And as this proceeds, if the assumption is that this structure goes away, it's another contributing structure that will no longer be part of the district. You've expressed the value of the home that you're working on is premised on it being in a very special place. The historic district is very special, and each time we lose one of the contributing structures, it compromises the special nature of it. So the question is, it's more qualitative. Can you just comment from your perspective, describing how important it was to restore the primary structure by now sacrificing this contributing structure? What are the implications from your perspective, on the fabric of the neighborhood? That's just something that's sort of lost in this discussion. I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, like I stated earlier, living in Hyde Park has been kind of a dream of mine, kind of since I was a younger. I mean, I went to school at St. John's Episcopal, which is right in the heart of the village, and I respect that we would lose a piece of the historic fabric, but this is kind of a one-off situation for a accessory structure that is, at least in my opinion, not as critical to the fabric of the district.
Fair enough.
What I think is important is, what's front and center on the house and on the corner.
Thank you.
Cool.
It was a very good presentation. I have no questions.
No questions either.
I had one question. The applicant, would you consider recycling some of the materials in the wood that you're taking off in the demolition and just reusing some of it for some purpose, even if it's, not on the new structure, but just to recycle the history?
Yeah.
And maintain the history.
Absolutely. It's something that I've already discussed with our contractor, and something we've done on the main structure. We had the the current the paneling that was on the exterior of the structure. We've pulled it off of all the inside walls that was there, and we're reusing on the outside of the house. That's something that we would do here. I will say that there's a considerable amount of termite infestation
Right,
throughout.
most of it's not recyclable.
But I will say that,
Yeah.
you know, the old siding is significantly better than the new siding, and it actually matches up from a reveal perspective
Yeah.
on the inside, so it actually will help me waterproof the exterior of the house.
I know, I drove by and I noticed that the siding was probably the least damaged
Yeah.
portion. And,
Yeah.
and I was hoping that you could reuse that. for-
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
No questions.
Commissioner Post asked one of my questions, but one more follow-up. Just to be clear, the roof had holes in it when you purchased the property? As far as you know?
There was a few holes, and there was a removal of a large oak tree that was deemed hazardous. During that removal, there were people on top of the roof, and someone put a foot through the roof.
Okay.
That added one of the holes, but there was a considerable amount of holes in the roof when we purchased it.
It wasn't waterproof, is that what you're? Okay.
Correct, yeah.
And then second question, and I don't know if this is for you or your agent, you submitted into the record a proposal for rehab, but it was just a lump sum, there was no detail.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any detail available?
I got it from so the process for that was I asked my GC that's doing the renovation. He said that based on the structural engineer that we were using for the project, that he was like, I'm not doing this, the renovation. I reached out to 2 other contractors, showed them the report, they said the same thing. Will Keene, who's here today, provided me a budget or a quote for a one-off repair of the project. I think with that, there's a considerable amount of, it's a small project, so
Sure.
it's hard to get anyone's attention to do stuff. So I'm sure that, you may look at the number and say, it's really high. Well, it is really high because not many people want to do this, this type of repair work. So he's here to speak if you want to ask questions on it, but
No, I was just asking if you had it.
Yep.
Okay, no further questions. Any other questions from the commissioners? No, not seeing any. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you so choose.
I don't have much else to add. As Patton mentioned, we believe that this is a really site-specific case, and this is not something that's going to set any kind of precedent in the district. But that's it. We respectfully ask for your approval.
Great, thank you. All right, at this point, we're going to close the public hearing and move on to discussion. Floor is open.
I've started a trend, right? So, probably not surprising, it's very disappointing to have to even consider a demolition. I think they've presented a lot of compelling quantitative aspects. I think there's kind of 3 points that I focused in on, and I would comment on this, that I think the structure has been demolished by neglect. Not necessarily by this owner, but by owners over the years. It's either intentionally or willfully, as the statute sets forth, it's been left, to have really nothing left to save, which is quite unfortunate. It's not for today's discussion, but how a structure gets to that point over the years, to me, is a concern. And what we as a city are doing to prevent that from happening and having to face these unique situations time and time again where they're not so unique is, again, different conversation, but one that's important. I also think that if we were to impose a rehabilitation based on the facts that we've heard, there's very little historic significance to what would be the result. Maybe there's some siding that could be saved, but not much else. Frankly, I'm most moved by the comments from the neighbors, the letters from the neighbors that find for someone to reference a structure in Hyde Park as being a blight is just very problematic. It's such a lovely place, and it's unfortunate that neighbors see it that way. and that there have not been good stewards. But I think having that much community support and direct neighbor support is the most compelling aspect for me. So while I rarely, if ever, want to support a demolition, I think they've made a compelling case, and the neighbors, no neighbor is objecting to it, and many neighbors are supporting it, so I would support it.
Yeah, like I said, I did go by and took a look myself, and, you know, I'm all for restoring. That's my business. That's what I do, is historic restoration. And I'm very adamant about, you know, historic materials and fabric being saved, and it's my professional opinion that it can't be saved either. There's too much to replace. For it to then remain an actual piece of history. Yeah, once you rebuild something, it's no longer the historic structure.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion. Okay. Move to grant the certificate of appropriateness to demolish for ARC 26000060 for the property located at 401 Nance Avenue, inasmuch as the agent has satisfied the requirements of Chapter 27, Section 27, 116F of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any other I'm sorry.
No, I'm just
Oh.
getting ready for the next.
I think there were some conditions. Do we need to make
I
those
talked about the
explicit?
siding, if you could use the siding, and that's something we talked about when I met him on site.
Yeah.
There are some horizontal siding that can be reused, so that's something that we talked about, and he's open to that.
I don't know if we
So that could be a condition.
I would support it.
I don't necessarily think it needs to be a condition, but if you want to amend the motion?
No, I'll amend the motion and say yes, that whatever portions of the decent and reusable fabric be saved.
Does the maker of the motion accept the amendment? Okay.
Okay, so we have a new motion, amended motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous, congratulations. We can move on to the second portion of this case.
I just wanted to address the board that we're gonna roll into the second part of this application for new construction for the accessory structure with site improvements.
Alex Shaler, 400 North Ashley Drive. Again, let's see. I'm going to be fully on the dot cam this time. So I'll start with the site plan. Okay, so here on the left side, this is showing the existing garage. You'll probably recognize that screenshot from the prior presentation. And then this is the new construction. So I'll slide over and we can focus here on this. As mentioned earlier, we are providing this full-length driveway here on site to accommodate this extra vehicle here. This will be a one-car garage here, so that vehicle will be parked there in the garage. As Ron mentioned earlier, Hills is the only vehicular access. There's sidewalks here, these street trees to remain here, those are oaks. Sidewalk here, again, off of Nance, this is the main pedestrian entrance to the house, and this is the frontage is all facing Nance. As mentioned, this existing structure is not part of the request before you this evening. This is just the proposed new construction for the garage structure. I mentioned this earlier, but this new, let me see if I can zoom in here. This new structure will be fully compliant with the setbacks. As you can see, the front setback, we're proposing 18 feet, this prior 10, and then again, the right side setback is more than compliant with the minimum 3-foot setback there. We are proposing no waivers to the land development code, so this is 100% code compliant. And let's see, I will move on to the elevations. So this is the east side elevation you can see here. You can see this. This is the west side here. I can zoom in on this if you need to. That. You can see this is the south. The rear elevation. And then this is the north elevation from the street. As mentioned, this is a a two-story structure. It is below the maximum allowable height of 22.5 feet. And you can see the existing primary structure here in that larger setback from that structure as well. This is the wall section. Zoom out on this. So this is going to be a typical gable roof here. We're also going to have those exposed wood eaves there. Slide this down so you can see this. It's going to be hardy lap siding. Then you can see the typical slab foundation here is a concrete slab with monolithic footing. And then painted stucco at that exposed concrete, and you can see the finished grade there as well. The details, there were some staff conditions that were listed in the staff report that I wanted to run through here. One of those issues was to provide the placement of the mechanical units on the plan, so I wanted to note where those were located. That's going to be over here on the side of the main structure, and then back here for the new proposed accessory structure. We already discussed the placement of the structure to meet codes. Again, that's fully compliant with the required setbacks. And then one of the other conditions was to indicate all new fencing location. Design criteria, I have that highlighted here. This is a new 6-foot wood fence that's proposed along this side. That's matching what's existing on site today. And all new hardscape shall be period correct, and that would be the case. So that's it, I think, for the conditions from the staff report. I did want to mention, yes, the design exceptions required for the additional height not to exceed that 22 feet 6 inches, though that is permitted by the land development code. And let's see. Measurement of the first floor elevation, that is also provided on the site plan. That's 19 feet. That's right there. And then the material samples I will show you here. And I apologize, our architect has a sick kid at home, so I'm moonlighting as the architect as well. This out here. So most of this will match the primary structure, and that was noted on the site plan. But this is the specific material palette that she had put together. But as you'll see, like I mentioned, a lot of this is matching the primary structure. The windows, the doors, and the sconces. And then you can see the lap siding, the stair and railing, the roof shingles, the paint colors, and the hardware. And that is all the information I have on the proposed structure. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Ron, if you need to share something as well.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Staff finding this application is consistent with the presentation that was presented this evening. They went through the staff report and some of the concerns that we had. Looking at the drawings this evening, we have some additional concerns. We need additional information on the railing that goes up to the second floor. Usually they have a bottom rail that it dies into, the pickets die into. It was not illustrated on the drawings. The casing around the windows usually has a true 2-inch sill on it. That needs to be expressed on the drawings. The windows that they showed, the windows in the primary house are all wood windows, so they could use a wood window or they could use a cladded window. That needs to be determined. And when we review fencing, we look at the location of the fencing, the height of the fencing, the design of the fencing, and the material of the fencing. So that additional information should be called out on the plans or delegated to staff. She did indicate that the design exception for the additional height to be at 22 feet, 22 and a half feet or under, we could approve that administratively as well. We worked with the building department. That concludes my portion.
Great, thank you. Anybody in the audience to speak for or against this project? Okay, not seeing anyone, we'll move on to questions. I'll start on my left.
I don't have any questions.
Could you bring up the elevations again so we could look at the stair rails elevations and some of the materials? I was trying to read all the materials as fast as I could, but I couldn't catch them.
Okay.
And you zoom into that side elevation there, yeah.
Yeah.
The east, yep. We're trying to understand the stairway. What's happening underneath the stairway with the horizontal 1x8 screen? What is that about? Do we know?
This is just a, I guess, design feature from my architect to provide like some covered storage area beneath the stairwell.
I was gonna say, so there's something stored under there?
Could be. I mean, it's just, it's a very compact house and a compact site, and
Okay.
the idea was to have the ability to put something under there.
Is there any other detail for the handrail in the set, in the drawings?
No.
Okay. Material callouts, they were shown photos. Are they, is this wood siding? Is this hardy board siding? What's the make and manufacture of the windows, that kind of thing? Do we have any of that information?
Not at the moment. We used gelled on the primary structure. Like Ron said, we used all wood and wood clad. I think we would probably try to go the clad route for this, this project. But
On the siding, would you use wood? Would you reuse any of the real wood that you're taking off? the old one, or are you gonna use that on the main?
I think we addressed this on some of the main structure, that new structures, the desire was to, or the intent is to kind of show what's new and what's old. So you don't want to use the same siding on a new structure.
Okay.
Our intent was, I'm happy to use it on the main structure, but I think using it on the old structure would be, the new structure would be kind of counter to what we were hearing from Ron.
So what is the siding? On the new?
It's a lap siding. On our small addition, we're using wood. I think we would go.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
If it's wood or if it's, the hardy board or
I think for now,
whatever.
we're comfortable going wood because that's
Okay.
what's on the rest of the house.
And this is gonna have gutter and downspouts?
Yes, that was a comment from someone.
Staff, yeah.
Do you have it, what those are gonna be made out of? Or
Yeah.
shape?
It'd be half round, I believe.
Okay. I don't really have any other questions. Oh, I did one on the garage doors. Do we have a garage door selected? Are you gonna try to imitate the existing one and have it handmade, or is it going to be a roll-up? What is it gonna be?
It would be a roll-up for functionality purposes. The way that it's done now, it's kind of one of the accordion ones that goes into the wall. I think for functionality purposes, I'd like to have it be a roll-up. Explored some manufacturers that can do a similar look. I don't personally think it looks very good, but
Are they gonna be made out of wood?
don't think so.
Okay. But we don't know what the manufacturer is?
No.
Okay. We can leave that up to staff, I think, right? Okay. I have no other questions.
This is probably more a question for staff, but you mentioned, Ron, the casing at the windows. I just want to make sure that that all the trim on the addition is matching the trim on the main house.
everything on the addition to the primary structure is matching. That's been reviewed and is under, permitting now, and they're swinging a hammer out there. For the accessory structure, we'd like for it to be compatible as well. What is left out in the field a lot of times, and we see it over and over again, is that the sill is a 1-inch sill, and it is lacking details. So I wanted to call out so the board knows, and when they come in, they know, and their contractor was here, that the 2-inch sill is preferred.
Yeah, that as well as the width of the trims.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay, all right, no more questions.
I have no questions.
Thank you. 2 questions. One was just to clarify, Michelle, you said it was 100% code compliant, but then you're seeking a DE. So I think those are not consistent. It's
Yeah, I should have said it, yeah, it'll be 100% code compliant with the design exception.
assuming the
Right.
DE goes
That's right,
through.
yep, administratively, yep.
And I had the same question about the garage doors. So we don't have an image of them?
Don't
There's
have an
no
image of-
rendering?
No, I don't have an image of the material.
Or even the look. I had a similar, my thought was, okay, so likewise, I observed the existing garage doors are quite unique. Think they're very interesting. Respectfully, the owner feels differently, but given that we're losing the contributing structure, I wondered if there was any interest in recognizing some compatibility with what's being lost, just to pay respect to the former structure that was there.
Yeah, so I agree. I actually do think they're beautiful garage doors. The
Functionality is
the
not
functionality is not great, but
correct.
the vendors that I found that try to replicate the look that was there, I personally don't think that they look, it's not done effectively. I'm certainly open to and happy to talk to Ron and anyone else that may have a potential vendor that can.
If there's a way to
fashion it.
achieve the functionality that I think you need
Yes.
with the look, feel, vibe of what
Totally.
you're giving up would be fantastic.
We're absolutely open to exploring it. So
Thanks.
Yeah, I've put a stained wood door in Hyde Park, in a house that did have Florida product approval also.
okay.
That was swinging, wasn't
Got it.
roll up, but I can send that to Ron or whatever.
Okay.
Great. Can you put the site plan up, please?
Sure.
And would you just clarify from the site improvement standpoint, what's part of the already permitted plans and what's part of this?
Sure. Let's see. Oops. So this is already part of the permitted plans going this way.
Okay,
So it would just be this driveway and this accessory structure here. You can
and
see that there.
like, what appears to be the brick pathway, is that part of this, or is that part of the?
I believe that's part of the renovations, is that correct?
I believe so. I'm not certain.
Okay,
I think this is limited to just the garage and the driveway extension. And then obviously this, you can see here, this is, let me zoom
yeah,
in
what
here.
is that on either side of the
Yeah,
brick?
so there's pavers on either side of the driveway, and those are shown here. And the reason for that is so that it matches the width of the existing curb cut. It was a request from the transportation department.
Okay, and then the 2 black squares are part of the, is that part of the existing retaining wall? Okay, so those aren't gonna have to be rebuilt, or that's gonna be under administrative?
Yep.
Okay, and then the retaining wall legs that come to the south, I'm assuming, is that existing, rebuilt, or is that a new feature?
So those are existing. It's likely that they're going to need to be rebuilt because some of them are failing and
Okay.
they are, the way that the building is positioned, it's a little wonky, so.
Got it, okay. And then you said everything was compliant with code, so I'm assuming the impervious, pervious ratios met? Okay.
That's right.
Okay, let's see. And again, you're missing your materials palette, but we can put that in as a condition. Okay. And then you will have a fence around the whole property, so your ACs will be screened, completely screened? Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, not seeing you, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, if you so choose.
I'll wait for rebuttal, but thank you.
All
Appreciate
right,
the time.
great. Thank you very much. All right, at this point, we're going to close the public hearing and move on to discussion. is open.
It's not overdone. I think it's, you know, it's reflective of very similar two-story accessory structures. The face of it towards the street is respectful, you know, it's not I don't have any real issues with it. It also did have the nice, I didn't even ask or talk about it, but the existing has a little lattice work attic vent, and that's been duplicated on the new elevation too, because that was a nice little distinguishing feature also of the garage.
I also think it's nice that they didn't go to the max height. They could have gone to the max height and didn't need it, decided they didn't need it and didn't take it, so that's a nice touch.
And setting it back a little bit further is gonna offset that as well. But yeah, those doors. And I know they're a pain because you can't be in your car in the rain and hit a little button and have them open. You have to get out and physically open the garage doors, but they're beautiful. They really are nice.
Anybody want to proffer a motion?
I'll go ahead. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 26-000060 for the property located at 1401 Nance Avenue because, based upon the finding of fact, the proposed I have to go back because it's with conditions. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness, ARC at the address, with the following conditions. And that is that the window material and the garage door material must be specified and detailed. The window trim, specifically the 2-inch sill, must be provided and the other trim specified. The proper railing details should be provided, proper fencing details, and proper gutter details.
Garage door.
That's
You got that?
material, yeah,
You got windows?
yeah.
Okay. Shingles?
Shingles,
Oh, roofing material?
okay,
Light
roofing,
fixtures?
okay, roofing material. I think we had sufficient on the light fixtures.
Okay.
The
There was a-
DE needed to be approved.
And of course, this relies on the approval of the design exception.
And would you mind elaborating that, as was discussed, the garage doors, they would work with staff to have the garage doors, to the extent possible, modeled on the existings? To the extent possible.
All right.
So amended.
All right, and that the garage door, to the extent possible, shall resemble the old garage doors, taking into account the need for modern functionality. Okay. Mhm.
Second.
Because, oh, no, I'm not done. Because, based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines of the city of Tampa for the following reasons: the massing and materials, massing on the site, and the materials closely resemble that found in the district. All right.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. Discussion. My first point is I think that last little bit of language is almost worthless. And I think we get into a habit of putting that stuff in these motions to make us feel better, but they don't have any teeth, so then why put it in
About the garage
the garage door?
I don't think it's toothless. I think they'll use best efforts to work with staff. They have a potential vendor that might be able to provide materials or a solution to what we had discussed. And if they're unable to, so be it, but I think it's worth the exercise, and if we don't impose it, then it
Well,
doesn't get done at
My second
all.
point is that I don't think it shouldn't be up to us to say match that historic door. Hey, listen, this is just a motion. I'm gonna get overruled on this, but I don't agree with it.
Well, that's why we can all have different opinions, and the motion maker included it.
That's what we have
It's been seconded.
Yeah, I think as long as the homeowner and staff can work on it and make a determination that it doesn't fit with modern conveniences, the door doesn't look great and it looks crappy, you know, that there's some, you know, reasonableness worked into it, and look into it and determine if it's possible, and, you know, if it's not reasonable, then I think just leave it up to staff. I agree, I'm not sure, I think he's gonna do the right thing on the structure and we don't need to lay it out, but I don't think there's any harm in including it and leaving it up to staff to work with the homeowner on it.
I think the uniqueness here is that it's the loss of a historic structure. We don't do this typically, I don't think it's done so routinely, but in this unique situation, a case specific scenario, one that does have a structure with very unique garage door, that it is worth the extra effort.
Fair enough. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Congratulations. Good luck with the project.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The next item on our agenda this evening is ARC 26-0000167 for the property located at 2106 North Jefferson Street. This is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. The application before you this evening is for a certificate of appropriateness for an addition to the primary structure, new construction of an accessory structure, the rehabilitation to the primary structure, and site improvements. On your screen, you should be able to see the beginning for the photo essay here. We have the Tampa Heights Historic District map with the property in question highlighted in green. It's in the south half of the Tampa Heights Historic District on Jefferson Street, and it's located just south of Park Avenue and north of Ross Avenue. So the primary structure is a contributing structure. It was there pretty early on, and it dates back to 1908. And here you can see its footprint on the 1920 Sanborn maps, highlighted in green. The building itself is shown in yellow with a full width open front porch. And you can see that it's a wood frame dwelling, as indicated by it being the color yellow. This is the present day aerial photograph of the property, again showing it on North Jefferson Street just south of Park Avenue. One lot down. It is located along an alley that runs on the south side of the property. This is the front elevation of the primary structure. You can see that it has a front porch on it that is not original to the house. That was a later replacement porch. Moving around the house, this is the north side of the primary building. You can see some of the original historic wood windows set into the building wall on the north side. And also on the south side, this is the south elevation of the primary structure with the full length screens covering the wood windows. This is the west or the rear elevation. The original portion of the original rear portion of the house was expanded a bit, and that's why you see the bit of the change in the roof line there. This is the property directly to the north. And looking across the street to the east, this is the property across Jefferson. Looking north on Jefferson Street, the subject site would be on your left. And then looking south along Jefferson, the subject property would be on your right. You can see the opening to the alley there with the brick pavers. This is a view of the alley looking east, so we're looking back toward Jefferson Street in this picture, and the subject property is on your left. And then looking west in the alley, here we're seeing the alley as it curves around a little bit. And actually, the platted alley follows a straight path, but this one has been taken a bit of a jog into the neighboring property to the south. On the right hand side of the screen, you can see the existing shed on the property that's the subject of our application tonight. So at this time, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and present the request.
All right, good evening, council. My name is Alex Rios with Rios Architecture. I'll go ahead and start off with the project scope. We have the existing contributing structure right here in the darker gray. The incompatible front porch will be replacing in full. A small addition to that structure will be not shown on the site plan as the incompatible accessory structure that you saw in metal on the left, and then the proposed ADU towards the back. So in red, you can see the elements that are being removed. Here is an axo of the new construction in a perspective. There are a lot of trees on the property, as we can see here, and I'll go over a handful of drawings that we did on the property to try to find out the best parking scheme. We did a handful of attempts to try to utilize the alley, some off the right, which were in conflict with trees. And the angled parking wasn't necessarily ideal either, just because of the, it was determined as more of a one-way alley than a two-way alley because of the width. So I think as a team kind of concluded basically on parking on the left-hand side, which avoided all the protected trees on the site. I do want to point out that we are still maintaining all the trees. We are encroaching into some of the protective radius of those trees, but we are doing a raised floor foundation. We do have an arborist report that calls out where the 2-inch and 4-inch roots are, and the proposed perimeter of that structure is avoiding those roots. Here is a very, a demolition plan. Again, the front porch being removed, the side entry.
Can you slide that up, please? We can only
Sure.
see half
Yep.
of it, yeah.
Perfect. The front porch being removed, replacing the front door, replacing this door with a window, removing the side entry, and removing a portion here for the proposed addition. And here are some floor plans. Here we have the kitchen, living, dining, bedrooms, master suite towards the back, and then access to a second floor for 2 bedrooms. And then, of course, there's the contributing structure, or excuse me, the accessory structure towards the back. Here are the proposed front elevation. Again, this elevation does show the accessory structure in the back. I do think, in my I do think the better representation is that that perspective, though. So I just want to bring that back up. I do think this perspective kind of really captures the scale a little bit more of the ADU and how far back it is. But this front elevation does show that ADU as well. So again, we have the front porch, the proposing turn columns. I guess we can go top down for materials. We have the 5V crimp roof. We have beveled wood siding. We have double hung wood windows with with dividing lights, We have turn columns, wood fence with 2x4 top and bottom rail, and 2x2 balusters. Oh my goodness. We have masonry piers and some with brick fascia, and we also have a cross lattice work within those piers. Here's the front. Here is the back of the primary structure. And these are the side elevations of the proposed ADU. There and there. And then a few more elevations. This is the ADU with the north elevation, or left side of the structure. And then the back side of the ADU with the right side of the structure. With that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Commissioners, staff found this application to be consistent with conditions, and kind of going through some of those, I would like you to, the conditions for this project begin on page 7 of the staff report near the bottom. So one of the concerns that staff had, and we just want to make sure all these get addressed, was the front porch depth and how, typically our historic porches in the neighborhood are generous and livable, being about 8 feet deep. So I would double check that measurement. I don't know whether I don't believe that any scoring was shown for the drives and walkways, so that should be addressed as well. The demolition proposed on the main structure, including the roof, is a concern that staff has as well. This can result in an adverse impact to the integrity of the historic structure, and it's not that, along with the removal of the existing chimney, staff's conditions were to not alter or remove the chimney, and to provide clarification on the roof and its demolition or replacement. Those do need to be addressed. I believe also going through the complete wall section, I know that the applicant did discuss the exterior materials. I would just make sure that everything is shown, including all the materials for the new proposed porch, including the ceiling, the flooring, porch material, any trim as well. Other than that, I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone in the public that's here to speak for or against this project? All right, not seeing anyone, we will move. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Come on up. You'll state your name and your address. Oh, and I believe you need to be sworn in. I think there's another gentleman that needs to be sworn in as well.
It's just a right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony being provided today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Just your name and address, then.
Kathy Stokes, 307 East Park Avenue.
Perfect, thank you. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
My concern is the structure that's being built in the rear of the main home and the access to the alley. I am experiencing concerns already in traffic jams in the alley. So I didn't really see in the diagram the structure that's built in the rear of the home, how the car is going to access that, and will they have to block the alley for us to go up and down you can either go one way or whatever. We normally just wait for each other, but there's a home that was built, well, it's in the picture in the alley, directly behind my home, and it's really close to the alley. It's a concern that it's growing, the development, and what's coming next.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? All right, not seeing any, I will start on my right with questions from the commissioners.
Thank you. My only comment, and then I would like to reserve my comments until after the architects respond, but it seems like there are a lot of open items that were not fully addressed by the applicant. But I'll just say that and then reserve further.
Okay.
Well, we may as well start by going through the conditions that were noted by staff. So what is the depth of the front porch?
Yeah, come on up.
Okay. The proposed depth is 8 feet.
Okay. And now, where is the chimney?
The chimney is being proposed to be removed. If it is a condition, we are trying to keep it just because it is in the center of the floor plan. It's just challenging to work with.
Okay, can we look
Yeah,
at that?
can you put it up on the plan again?
Sure. So the best representation I have for it is in here on this axo. The chimney is approximately right here where actually the demo plan has it. Let me pull that up. The chimney is right there.
Okay, so in the uses in the existing house, that was probably kitchen versus living room?
Yes, it was. It looked. It was kind of hard to try. I believe this was the common area. I don't recall which one was the kitchen, which was the dining. Honestly, it looks like the kitchen was back here, and it was four bedrooms at the front, and it's it was just very challenging to work with, not in the best condition, whatnot. But so that was the reason for removal. But we are keeping everything else on the structure.
Mm-hmm. And what's the condition of the 5V crimp roofing? Have you taken some of it off, looked at the underside?
The condition of the roof is more structural in nature as far as the concern, but it's also us trying to capture. It's a combination of that and us trying to capture additional square footage. As you can see, the proposed floor plan, we do have access to a second floor. The structure is unique in how it has has a strong, prominent gable, and we were wanting to capture some of that square footage that we could capture for more living space. So it's just it's structurally it's being replaced, and by that I mean but we are keeping the same slope and pitch. As, the one other comment that came to mind, if I may, was the scoring. To Elaine's point, we did not show scoring. We do have a note 10 on the site plan to propose it, but it did not. We did not show that scoring. And yeah, anything else? I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. So the existing roof is joists and not trusses, right?
Yes, conventionally framed. Yes.
And so the new roof structure is going to be joists but not trusses as well.
It would be just by by how it is configured.
Right.
We would be.
Because there's no room to put in.
I suppose we could do like a room and attic truss, but we can kind of see how that plans out. But at the very least, we would at least propose it's very feasible to do a conventionally framed roof, for sure.
All right. So I'm going to focus on, I want to know about the gable vents, right?
The gable vents at the front and back of the structure?
Yeah, you're turning into windows. Let's take a look at what you're doing there.
Sure.
It's very apparent from the photograph on the front of the staff report that that the front has been changed, certainly. So we've got in the center, we can see that there was a gable vent there.
Yes.
Or perhaps a window that it's been filled in with, something was there that's been filled in with siding. So can we look at the proposed elevation then?
Yes. Here's that perspective again, and then here's that elevation.
Okay, so you didn't show us the exact area where there was previously some kind of a hole.
Yeah, the hole would roughly be a little bit taller and a little bit smaller than where the proposed window would be.
Okay. And I also noticed in the photograph that we just looked at.
Yes.
That there was some blue tarp on the main roof there. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Right? So that means that the 5E crimp has failed in certain areas, that it's got holes in it? What's going on there?
I know it's not in good condition. I know there is water penetration. I don't know the full extent of the disrepair, but it's bad enough to where we're trying to just prevent any further damage.
Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager. If you remember, this property came before you for a demolition request several months ago. And as part of the response from the staff after that denial of the demolition request, our code enforcement officer ordered the roof to be tarped or repaired. There was damage from the hurricane is what was put on the record. And so the tarp was added to both the front porch, which was non-historic, and to the main body of the structure.
Okay, thank you. All right. No further questions.
I just want to talk about the roof just a little bit more. And so it doesn't look like you're altering the roof line. Is that true?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We've measured the proportions and we're keeping it as close as possible to the existing condition. And I say possible meaning like we are representing it exactly as we've measured it.
Okay.
Today, yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Could you bring up that red demolition?
Sure.
Axon, please, and zoom in on it. You could zoom in on it at the top of the machine there. You can zoom in.
Okay, gotcha. The dial.
Keep going, please.
Okay.
It's just hard to read. Okay, that's good. All right. So what seems to me is that you're demolishing the entire house except for some exterior walls.
Well, we're removing the non-contributing front porch, the small entry on the side, and we're making way for the addition on the back. All the walls, piers, flooring system, we're keeping in place. There is a lot of red just because the roof is represented as being removed.
But every interior wall is also removed.
It is being, the interiors, yes.
How about the floor joists?
The floor, if they need to be replaced, I'm assuming they will need to be replaced. For structural reasons, we'll replace them, but that would only be replacing in kind.
Okay. The reason I say so is it was brought up that this house had a demolition request and we denied it, and it's basically being demolished anyway, to a great extent. And I'm still, I think the previous commissioner pointed out that there doesn't seem to be a reason to replace the roof or the roof structure because you're replacing it with the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. We do want to replace the structural members of the roof, and at that point, it's kind of that's why we're replacing it. But we are keeping the proportions. The diagram it may be a tad misleading just because of how the extent of it, but
do you have a structural report on the roof joists?
I do not know.
Okay. Did you present wall sections tonight?
I did not present them, but I do have them.
And this is all for the ADU, right?
It's a combination. We have the front porch being proposed here, and then the ADU, and then a section of the existing, of the addition to the contributing structure.
Okay, so the front porch on the left, the floor system being shown both for the front porch and for the existing house, are these open trusses, floor trusses?
Shown are open floor trusses, but we'll make that a determination. I doubt floor trusses are there, so we'll be representing that with conventional frame. Conventional frame.
I'm confused. What does that mean? These are shown as if everything's brand new.
Understood.
That the exterior wall is brand new, that the floor joists the trusses are brand new, that everything's brand new.
Second floor, same thing.
We're showing the components of the structure, not necessarily showing what's existing and what's proposed. We're showing everything as new in these sections. That's correct.
So I'm confused. Where's the existing house? In the porch drawing, where's the existing house?
So in this case, everything right of this line would be existing.
But that's not how it's drawn. That's not what you're presenting in drawn form. And these drawings are what get approved.
Understood. The sections show, new insulation. They show new drywall on the interior. The metal, the wood framing would be existing to remain. The sheathing will be replacing in kind. The flooring support would be replaced in kind, if needed. So I understand the disparity between new and proposed, but as far as what's represented on the floor plans, maybe a better representation of what's existing and what's being removed.
Well, I mean, these drawings get stamped.
Understood.
With an approval stamp, the ARC approval stamp, and that's not a drawing that we would approve because it shows that there's nothing of the existing house left.
Understood.
Can you describe, while you have that drawing up, please?
Yes.
Can you please describe what all the materials are for the porch? What's the siding on the house? What's the siding on the ADUs?
For the siding, we proposed bevel wood siding. Windows, I believe they're.
We have to distinguish between the existing house, which is a contributing structure, and the ADU, which is a new structure.
Yes.
So you have to distinguish between those two.
Understood.
Thanks.
For we were proposing bevel wood siding for the existing structure that we're proposing bevel wood siding. For the new structure, we haven't quite determined yet a siding, but we'll show one that is as close to compatible, but different in its own way, just to distinguish the.
Out of what material?
Wood.
It would be wood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you zoom in on the porch and how that porch is being presented? I can't read. Can you zoom in so we can read some
Sure.
of the words, please?
Yeah, so the materials are called out on the left, the 5V crimp roof, the 1x6 fascia, a soffit to conceal that fascia, tongue and groove, porch ceilings, the turned columns, and then as well as we have 1x6 tongue and groove for the flooring. And then, of course, the railing that was.
So you have concrete stairs going up to a wood porch.
Yes.
Can you move that drawing up just a bit, please? And you're using thin brick veneer, not real brick?
It'll be
correct?
a veneer, yes. Well, of course,
How are you ending the bottom of the siding when it gets to the rim boards on the right-hand side there?
How will I bond to the siding for the, is it
How
for-
you end at the bottom of the siding? It just looks like there's exposed framing on the right-hand side of the second detail, not the porch detail, the second detail.
this one right here?
Yeah,
The siding would continue to the pier. That's true.
like the other one.
Mhm.
Okay. Those aren't real windows. Those are picture windows also. It's not a double hung window or a single hung window. That's just, they wouldn't be in the same plane. And that's not really showing us how, do you have a blow up of that? You have a
Not-
detail?
The window?
Well, it says there's a window detail called out.
We do have one shown here with more details around the window. But the window itself, you could use more detail, certainly. But the trim is called out in more detail here.
Yeah, what's the inside and outside on this? That looks like the window's pressed. Again, we're approving these details, or we're not approving these details. So that's not how the window would be built. Okay, what's down, can you slide that drawing up? Does that call out sizes?
For the window trim,
Yeah. It just
I
says.
could talk about them, but I don't have them called out. We are proposing
Okay.
1x8s for the top portion, 1x4s for the side, and then a 1.5 for the sill.
Okay, I guess somebody else brought up the alley. Can we talk about the alley?
Yeah.
Actually, the commenter, your neighbor, brought up
Yes.
the alley and how the alley's being dealt with, and I'm not sure we went through those options of the site plans really, really fast, and we didn't really get to look
Sure.
at things very
Um,
well.
None of the proposed parking is using the alley. All the proposed parking is off of this driveway. This widens to a two-car parking area, and all three required parking spaces would utilize that parking and this driveway. No access is needed from the alley.
Okay, how would you enter either of the houses from the driveways?
We could park in tandem style here, front to back, and then walk to the front door. Another spot can be parked on the side and enter the ADU.
Okay, and there's no paving connection, pavers shown
No.
making those connections?
No.
Is there a reason there's a sidewalk for the ADU leading to the alley?
I believe that was done, and I may be incorrect on this, but I believe access to a right-of-way was required by code, but I don't believe that.
Well, wouldn't you
on
connect
second
the
thought, I don't
driveway
believe
to
that's the
it?
case. What's that?
Wouldn't you just connect the driveway to it and that's your access to a right-of-way? I'm
does-
not sure
it would-
exactly what the code is regarding sidewalks, but, it's gravel.
Understood. That makes certainly makes more sense to do it that way, and I take no reservation to do that.
Okay. Does this porch addition relate in any way to neighbors' houses, neighbors' porches, setbacks, that kind of thing?
Well, there is a current design exception. The existing primary structure does not meet current setbacks, and so our design exception is because of that. And we are adding the 8-foot porch, which is granted by code. That's what the DAE is for, to allow that front porch. And the 8-foot depth is, I think, more in line with the period of the home than it is with neighboring properties.
Okay, but would the setbacks be needed to be relative to the adjacent, do I need to ask staff that? Does the setbacks from the porch and the house need to be relative to the neighbors along the street and the block?
For this particular property, staff would suggest that, given that the existing footprint of the main building, with the exception of the porch, would be its historic footprint, that, and based on what we see on the Sanborn maps, the front porch depth historically would have been roughly 8 feet.
Right.
So we're just stating that that is typical, and that's our suggestion, that the porch be 8 feet from the,
Okay,
from the,
all right,
yeah.
thanks. Can you put up the main floor plan and the existing demolition floor plan right next to each other so that we can see side by side where the chimney is located?
I'll do the demolition is on the right, proposed floor plan on the left.
Can you align them? Align
Okay.
the plans, please?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of where the kitchen dining table is, roughly. Yeah, I'm having difficulty with the level of demolition, with the amount of demolition, of distinctive features, involved.
Understood. And when, like, I'm trying to comprehend your perspective there. It's removal of an existing non-contributing porch, a partial demolition of this wall, and replacement of the roof. So I just, okay. I wouldn't think the front porch would be be seen as a negative impact. is what
I'm referring to the chimney.
I understood. I got you.
I'm actually referring to the chimney as a major contributing feature. Also, the front, the gable vents, and turning them into something in a shape that they're not. And because, all right, I have no further questions.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go through the conditions that were in the report, but first let me ask you, from the alley, for your neighbor's question
Yes.
again, is there fencing between this property and the alley?
None existing, no.
Okay. Is there anything that's gonna prevent somebody to turn on the alley and then turn into what is gonna be your,
We would propose
drive-
fencing.
driveway?
Yeah, we would propose fencing along that.
So you're gonna have fencing go how, like, put up one of the drawings and show where the fencing is gonna be?
We'd have fencing all along the perimeter. Privacy fence, wood privacy fence along all 3 sides, and then as it moves closer to the front of the property, it would drop down to 4 feet.
So push the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
up a little bit so I can, okay, and then fencing in the front as well?
Undecided along the front.
Okay. So where the alley is and the sidewalk, the fence is just gonna end right on that corner?
On this corner, yes. And we kind of want that to delineate alley from our driveway. Again,
Okay.
it wasn't, if it were ideal situation, vacant, like, not vacant lot, but vacant, no trees, we'd probably be proposing it on the right side. But there's so many trees on that side, plus the larger
Sure.
tree in the back.
Right. But what I'm getting at is that somebody can't pull from the alley directly into this new driveway.
Understood.
They're gonna be forced to go the correct way into the driveway.
And yeah, another determining piece to that was that 90-degree parking off the alley wouldn't be per transportation standards today.
Okay. And then on the side where the ADU, the sidewalk going out, I guess there'd be a little gate or something there into the alley, or what's gonna happen there?
To John's point, that's completely valid. We should have turned that walkway to the driveway.
Okay, so it's not gonna go out, you're
Yes.
proposing to turn it, okay. So just so it's clear for the neighbor, there's gonna be a fence then that runs all along that side?
Yes.
So that there's no turning into the alley from this property?
Yes.
Okay, all right. When you remove the front porch,
Mm-hmm.
what's gonna happen to the front of the house?
The
To the
front of the-
materials on the front of the house? Does
Well,
all that need to be replaced?
When we get a full demolition, I suppose we'll see what the condition is of that siding. Let me go back to as far as the demo, we are replacing the front door.
You gotta move it up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. We are replacing the front door, and there is another window, or excuse me, another door there that we'll be replacing with the window. And I think that's just keeping with the symmetry of the home.
So there's a window there now, but you're gonna put a door?
Excuse me, there's a door now, and we'll be replacing with the window.
Window,
Yes.
okay. Okay, but we don't know when you remove the porch, what,
The extent of repairing would be needed. We do intend on keeping the materials if they're present.
okay.
Yeah.
And then tell me the same thing, so in the back corner, you can slide it down a little bit, you're gonna be removing, there's a number 6 there. There are stairs there now, going
Yes.
into that back, I guess what was the kitchen, and you're taking those off?
Yes, we're not proposing access to that side of the home. It is I think it is partially making way for the driveway also.
Okay, and on the other side, you're expanding out that wall?
Yes, this portion is bumping out and roughly in the same, I believe the same distance as the existing structure is on the left side, so 1'2" on each side.
Okay, so definitely that wall is going away?
Yes.
And the materials of that wall are going away?
Yes.
Okay, and then show me where the air conditioning units are, so I see one there, and it's raised, or what is it on?
It's slightly raised, it would be on a pad.
Okay, covered at all, or surrounded, or
Local,
screened
code,
in, or?
it would be concealed by vegetation, that is required by code to provide screening for that.
Okay, but then you've got stairs up directly next to it going into the new kitchen living area?
Yes.
So when you go up the stairs, you're gonna be able to see that air conditioning unit?
When you have to walk around the stairs, yes. To your point, it may be better to shift that AC unit a little bit further north, so it's not immediately abutting the stair. But we do want access to this side yard, just because it is a pretty generous side yard with some nice landscaping and whatnot that's currently there, so we want to take advantage of that.
Let me go back to the fencing. The fencing is gonna be what material?
Wood fencing.
Okay. And there are not gonna be any gates that we know of right now?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, is the only reason you're removing the chimney is to create this living space inside the home?
I think it's a combination of things. It's that, and it's also, again, we don't have a report, but it was not in the best condition, but I can't elaborate further than that.
Okay, who went up and looked at the chimney?
I believe it was, I have to look back at our report. It was something, I believe there's some context filed in the initial, when this application went for demolition, there was some context there. But I don't have much more to provide beyond that.
Okay. Okay, there's a note, provide measurements of exiting window openings on front elevations.
We do have a typical window dimensions here, as far as, and then on our elevations, We do have, we have windows, openings there, a 3.5 by 2.7. This was just matching the existing windows that we found at this portion of the house. It looks like there's a vertical dimension missing, but this is 3 feet wide. It is, yeah, it's 3 feet wide there. I believe it's 4'8" tall, or maybe 5, I forget to look back at that size, but we are trying to match the existing size on, excuse me, this is the ADU, I'm sorry. Let me go back to the, here we have a 2 by 4'9".
And are those all gonna be, what's happening with the windows? Are they all being replaced, or are you keeping the windows, or?
Some of the windows we're keeping. There are windows that are in decent condition on the north left elevation. Let me see here. Here's the existing, here's the floor plan. We are replacing this window and keeping all other windows. We are replacing, putting a window where the door previously was in this corner. And then existing windows along here, and then existing windows on this side. We do need to add one more window for the master suite there, but all other windows are existing, with this being new, and then we would need to add a window to the back of that master suite there.
And all the windows are gonna be wood windows, or what?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that front vent, I
Yes.
saw in one of the drawings that it said remove front vent to replace for this window or
Yes.
something along those lines. Can you
Yes, that's
blow
right.
up to one of the other commissioners' questions? So existing attic vent to be removed for new egress window for usable space above.
Yes. Yes, because we are occupying that attic area, we do need egress windows for those bedrooms to be code compliant, and that's the reason otherwise we're trying to keep it, but because we are capturing some living space in that attic area, that's the.
You need, okay. And then where is the air conditioning unit on the ADU?
It's currently shown, let me go back to it's currently shown right on this side, right there, in that top right corner.
Okay, and you're having a fence go along the back, right?
On the back, yes. Along all 3 back and side property lines, yes. And we intend on privacy fences there, so 6 feet tall.
Okay, there are other items that are noted, but I don't have the expertise to ask about them, so I'm gonna defer to the architects on the panel.
Great. All right, thank you for your presentation today. I got a few more questions for you. The addition to the main house, how are you differentiating that addition from the existing structure?
We're hoping to keep like materials. We want to, on the right side, we're keeping the same setback off the left, and we're hoping to keep the same, we have the same 5 feet crimp roof on the top, and we're hoping to continue the siding. We're only proposing one new window on that side, and we're hoping to keep, try to keep the language as much as possible.
I understand that, but how does somebody know that that was an addition versus part of the original structure?
We don't have any, we don't have a transition point in terms of materials. Obviously, any new materials we propose, well, we have to be, thoughtful of that. I'm not, I think in general, it is the intent to show a difference, to delineate between the character of the old and new. Our means of doing that, I'm not exactly sure at the moment. But I do think something with siding, with color, with the trim, could meet that effort.
All right, the roof. I understand the crimp is in bad shape, right, the existing roof. Explain to me the support. You said you did not have a structural expert stipulating that these had to be removed? Or did you say you do have evidence?
I believe the prior report done did say that. In addition, because of the condition, we move forward with its move removal.
Okay, but we don't have anything that has been submitted from an expert saying that it has to be redone. I thought I heard you say that you're assuming that these are in structurally deficient state, that you're gonna replace them with an exact same system, or are you doing a different system?
Proportionally, it's exactly the same.
No, I'm not talking about pitch, I'm
Understood.
talking about the actual structural members.
I don't have a strong approach to either. I think the same aesthetic could be achieved, whether it be a room and attic truss or conventional framing. Likely conventional framing would be selected. I could see either working. We have laid out the plan to accommodate conventional framing, so we are certainly open to that as well. With this, the proposed wall shown here is a load-bearing wall. We have a hatch pattern, a diagonal hatch to represent the intermediate bearing point for if conventional framing is used.
Okay, so for clarification purposes, you're the designer, are you also the contractor?
I'm not the contractor, no.
Has a contractor been selected?
No.
Okay. All right, so one of the big concerns, and a couple of the commissioners have brought it up, exclude the front porch, non-contributing, but from a demolition standpoint, one of the big features is the chimney, that's gone, and now the roof is gone, and what I'm hearing is, yeah, that's probably not gonna be in good shape, we're going to replace it, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna do that. In historic renovation, there should be a game plan, and my question is there a game plan? Has any thought been put into, once you expose these items, before you go to just replace with new material, how do we assess, how do we minimize the amount of replacement, and we emphasize repair, restoration?
Well,
Is there a plan for that?
To your point, I don't. Again, the drawings that we're showing today are as closely as we can possibly match the existing structure. I personally have no issue repairing those conditions and adding supports to the bottom chord of that conventional framed
Well, I
roof
guess
to make
my
that.
point is, let's don't use repair, let's use restore
Yes.
versus replace. And what we're running into is contractors get into these homes and they immediately go to replace, not restore. So what I would like to know is, what is the game plan? How do we keep a contractor emphasizing restoration versus replacement?
Well, the top chord of the, again, I'm maybe speaking in truss language, but the top chord of this truss, it's only supporting the roof. There's no additional weight to that. So if we're just so there's really no, there would be no need to replace it unless there's like termite damage or there was some structural condition due to the hurricane that would need to replace it. The bottom chord would need to be reinforced to capture the additional weight of the floor. So I don't mind going through certainly don't mind going through a more selective process to sustain that roof.
Okay, so my point is, I think I think there needs to be a plan
Absolutely.
that's submitted before we run into the problems, because you're gonna run into decisions that have to be made for our comfort. We're gonna want that. The chimney. I see what you're presenting to us. My question is, have you gone through any design scenarios where the chimney stayed?
It's a pretty limited footprint, I'll say that, for the floor plan. The one design situation where, I'll say this, that the floor plan is relatively efficient in terms of utilization of space. There's no hallways, there's no waste of space. Every door immediately acts as a common area. That said, the one consideration was to mirror the plan. left to right. And so that would put the chimney, again, really close to the stairway, preventing access, preventing really the functional use of that bathroom. And because the scope, the plan is so limited, we just couldn't really see a way to account for a chimney that was maybe not quite dead center on the plan, but right there.
Okay. Okay, talked about that, did you, I heard somebody ask the question, but I didn't really hear the answer. Do you have expert testimony that the chimney is in need structural repair?
Not with me today.
Okay. All right. Real quick, the upstairs window, you answered it. The reason you're not matching the size of that opening is because it's egress and it has to be larger for building code?
Yes.
Okay. And you looked, and I guess with the gable roof, there's no other egress point for those upstairs rooms?
There's a bed on each side of that second floor. An egress window would be needed, and a casement window would work, but I know that's not necessarily in line with the double hung window style that we're approaching. So a casement window could be possible there, maybe in a double hung style. That way it could be smaller and the total opening would be compliant.
Okay. All right, now I'm gonna shift to the site. You just testified that you're gonna put a fence up along the alley side.
Yes.
We had a resident come in and state their concern with the congestion on the alley. My question is there anything that you're proposing that's gonna exacerbate the existing congestion that happens on that alley?
We're not utilizing the alley in any capacity.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Most of the questions were answered, so I'll just circle on a couple of things, and I appreciate the attention to the alley. It sounds like we've addressed the neighbors' concerns, or you will through the fencing solution. So you'll be entering the primary through the front, and the only other access out is off to the side. There's no rear. Can you just tell us what's happening in the space between the primary? No, leave that
Oh,
up.
okay. Perfect. Yep.
Sorry. What's happening between the primary and the proposed ADU? What's that, 5 feet?
It is, yes.
Is it just grass? Is there?
It's just
any
grass, yes.
landscape? Is there, and pardon my ignorance to the staff, is that sufficient separation?
The code requires 5 feet between the eaves for building separation between a primary and accessory structure on the site.
Okay,
So that's between the roof eaves, not between the walls.
okay.
Correct.
What is the separation between the walls?
The proposed separation is 5. So we'll have to be, of course, very thoughtful on the eve-to-eve distance there. We may need to increase that 13.8 to a little bit, we may need to, let me look at the photo again. It is a,
If
I
the
believe,
eave has to be separated by 5, then your structure has to be greater than 5.
yes. Let me think through this, and I don't know, I may not know the full answer to this, but I believe a rated eave is permissible. We are completely encapsulating that eave to match the existing home.
So here's from my perspective, obviously you're going to need to meet whatever the code requirements
Yes.
are and the minimum standards. Assuming that, to me, this site, you've got a lot going on this site, and the addition of this ADU. Now, if you can go back to your elevation, you alluded to it in your first presentation about the image from the street. To me, it appears that the structure is eclipsing the primary dramatically from the front view versus being subservient to in any way. It's just very big.
I do think this elevation is arguably misleading in that it is showing an elevation through the full depth of the structure, and this should really be in quarter tone, because it is considerably further back.
So just, let's look at square footage. I'm just looking
Okay.
at the staff report. It doesn't indicate what, so it's showing your existing primary is 1,600, give or take, and the proposed accessory is 1,100. That's, and what's unclear here is, or I don't, I wasn't able to see, how much square footage you're adding to the primary. Are you adding, you're adding just a small amount of square footage in the back and on the side, I think?
Yes, it's 524 for both.
Okay, so you're gonna end up at about 2,000 for your primary. I'm going very broad numbers. And where I'm going, my impression is that the accessory is half the, assuming you're building on to the primary, you're at half the size. It's not a diminutive accessory. And to me, it's just, it's too big for the space. Which leads me to the question about your pervious, impervious calcs. Can you just visit those on your specs, pervious?
Yes, we're taking up 48% of the site for impervious.
Right at it. Okay, a couple of other just, this is a little ticky-tacky. Where's the trash collected? Is it on the alley or the front?
I
Where
haven't, I'm not sure.
If if it's trash collection on the alley, which often is the case, and you're fencing it, you might be creating an issue there.
Valid point, yes.
Something you need to account for, and I would 100% support preserving the chimney for all the reasons stated, as well as the staff's direction to do so. So, thank you.
Any other questions?
One question, how many square feet is the ADU?
So the ADU, then you see those on the two bottom tabs right there. It's 524 per floor, so just over 1,000 square feet. And the
Okay.
existing first floor, or it should be existing and proposed because of the addition, is 1,500, and then the second floor is 558. The second floor is smaller because of the steep pitch
Right.
on the
So the
gable.
footprint's 500, the total is 1,000. It still just seems to overshadow the primary. Thank you. Sorry.
I have no
Okay.
questions.
You're good? All right, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
So definitely a lot of things to think about after hearing your feedback. Our attempt up to this point has been to replace the roof, and I think the discussion today has got my mind thinking of how to preserve it a little bit more, or a lot more. And I have no reservation with trying to do that. Again, the only thing we're really pursuing from a design standpoint, aside from the condition of the roof and whatnot, is to reinforce that bottom core of that truss just for access. I see no issue. Of course, a game plan pending to preserve the roof. We'd like to do that. As far as the chimney, everybody from council was in support, and I'm trying to jog my memory and seeing how we could utilize it in the space. It's an interesting situation. I personally have a small 1,000 square foot condo, and a column's right in the middle, and I built in a island off of that. So, and just jogging my memory, there might be an option to make it functional. But that would be, I believe I've addressed parking. We've kept all the trees on site, with the exception of just 2 small ones here. No use of the alley pending access to trash. With that, I'll look to hear your feedback. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, with that, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing and move on to discussion. The floor is open.
I'll just point out, I went through all of the, I'm sorry. I went through all of the conditions, and there's a lot that just weren't addressed. We talked about fencing and gates. but there's no fencing and gates on any of the plans. We didn't get lighting fixtures and hardware. The window installation details, I think we pointed out that there's they're not details. There's no windows shown in the window details. That the existing and proposed elevations on the same sheet, so we could compare them, weren't there. The chimney is gone. The removal of the roof is, I think there's less of the house now as proposed than, there's less than 50% of the house remaining. And those were just those couple of things. I think it's a little too much to leave for staff to iron out with a set of conditions.
Yeah, I think that, some of the drawing inconsistencies too, like showing the floor trusses, that needs to be clarified for that. I mean, overall, I think the chimney aside, overall, the design of the front porch and of the ADU, I really like.
They're not horrible, yeah.
No, I really like it. I think the design is not horrible.
No, I mean, it's
Yeah,
nice.
no, it's,
Yeah,
I think
strong
it's,
compliment.
yeah, exactly. No, I think it's good. I think the design is good. There's a huge need for accessory dwelling units, extra places to live.
Right.
And I think that it is, because it's in the rear of the property, I don't think it overshadows what's going on in the front. I think as I said, the front porch addition is good. I like that window in the front where the vent was. So overall, aesthetically, I think it's a good design.
I would love to see that window mimic the shape of the existing opening. And have it a round top or a half, whatever. The existing opening had a shape and a size and a proportion to it. But I don't think that's even been explored. I don't think, they just took it out and put a square window in.
Well,
So you could have a round top window to match what that vent was if it was a casement and it would serve as a, casement with a divided light, and it would serve as egress.
So the question, I'm hearing there's too much, and I don't disagree with that for staff. Question is there enough here for preliminary approval to keep the process moving?
Keep the ball rolling.
So he could work out these details?
Yeah, I don't think, I guess we're all concerned that there's an awful lot of demolition of original fabric, and that there's like a disconnect, I think, between, but we're copying the same shape. But there's a disconnect between duplicating and original historic fabric being lost. And I think that needs to be emphasized more with the chimney, with the roof structure, with the roof, and with the shape even of that vent, that attic vent.
Well, I'm just concerned about the project in Hyde Park, that this is gonna be a duplicate of that. That you're gonna get a contractor who has had no historic renovation experience and is gonna come in and see termite damage and immediately rip everything out. And we're gonna end up with 2.5 walls braced, and he thinks he did a great job. And I think it could very possibly be that.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think the answer to that, we won't have any control of who he hires, but getting a program that gets approved, that has a step-by-step, that gives our staff the ability to interact before. So you're coming to the podium. I guess my question would be, what do you recommend in regards to that?
Well, I think Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager, and I think you're going to see moving forward based on some recent activity that we've seen out in the field, the staff's going to be much more specific on the extent of demolition. And I'll get into this another day, but we've altered our processes to try to curtail some of what we're seeing in the field. That being said, I think one thing that would be helpful would be a preservation plan to be presented on those items that you were calling out as concerns. And I think that this is more this situation, because we can certainly work with Mr. Rios, and they've been accommodating and trying to study different alternatives to preserve the structure, and still, I think, maximize their investment, which is really the issue that we keep seeing impacting the preservation of the structure. But we need more time to work through this, and that is more appropriate for a continuance to a date that, you know, they can accommodate the new details. But also, I would like to see, which helps the staff, you know, these projects, the certificate of appropriateness is good for 5 years. So my memory is not what it used to be. So I'd like to see, you know, what's existing, what's remaining, what's going to be proposed. And then also, they do have ownership of this structure. So we have worked with property owners on investigative demolition to be able to get into these spaces and determine really what can remain and what needs to be replaced. So additional time. I just want to, I've learned a lot in the last 3 or 4 months about the tipping point of demolitions and how that sort of interweaves into the Florida Building Code. And when you start taking roofs off of structures, you're going to hit what's called a level 3 rehabilitation. That's going to necessitate the entire structure being brought up to Florida Building Code.
Right.
From the footers up to the roof.
Right,
And
it's a replaced
and it's
building.
it's a new building, and
Yeah.
what it is what it is. So we have to be cautious of that tipping point with projects like this, to be able to make sure that they just don't look old, that they are, you know, of the integrity of a contributing structure.
Okay.
So
Do you need specificity, Dennis?
Well, I don't think so, if you have.
In continuance?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, we don't have to have any conditions or anything. That's
okay.
Go ahead.
So if the,
Yeah, just.
we know what the walls, other than, I guess, removing of the porch, right? We know what other walls are gonna be replaced. It's gonna be the one that he's expanding out, and the one where they're gonna put the window instead of the door. So is the real issue the roof? Is that really the issue of the replacement?
Roof, chimney, and probably, if we're having a discussion, the front wall
Yeah.
that the
Front wall.
porch is attached
Yeah.
to. So
yeah.
that's a quarter of the walls, all of the roof, the entire chimney, and the drawings show everything is brand new in the drawings in the wall sections. The details
Right.
of the drawings show everything brand new.
Well,
So
or
de-
it just doesn't specify.
Right,
New
which
versus
is
old.
old.
I mean,
Yeah,
So Dennis, to your point, if I may, so if it's continued, your office could work with him for this investigative of the wall, of the front porch. I just want to make sure we're giving clear direction to the owner as to what we're asking him to do
What?
to come back.
Yeah, I think that can be part of your motion in the continuance, is what you want to see when
Right,
when
so-
it comes
so
back,
if
and
I-
I'm happy to work with them, yes.
So is the investigative, your office, I'm just trying to understand exactly what that means. Your office would work with him to say, okay, let's go and take a little piece and see what happens to the front porch area, or what does that really
Well,
mean?
I mean, I think in this condition, we've dealt with many porch, either reopenings or reconstructions, and often, most of the material's still there, it's just been covered up. So you gotta get in there and take some of that down, see what's existing. My recollection, because I was in the house, was there was a window in the wall that was still there. You know, sometimes you have to undo some things, but there's a lot of questions about what type of structural reinforcement might be necessary. You know, is it even possible to put a second story into that roof structure? You know, you need to get up there, and frankly, that structural report that I saw was geared towards demolition of the structure.
Intentionally,
And
yeah.
not trying to introduce these elements into that volume. So I think that's a totally different approach. So we'll need time for that. I think June 1st is a good starting point, but we may need additional time after that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it is good that, obviously the structure has a lot of issues, even though we didn't grant the demolition. It, seems to have a lot of issues, and we need to be sensitive to that when it comes back, but, and just, if we could just get a little bit more information as to the current status of the structure, I think that would be good.
Just, and not to start getting off on this, but I'm here, so I'll go ahead and talk. So when we relocated the oldest house from Gary to Hyde Park a few years ago, that house was built in 1857, and the roof was moved and reused on the structure. So that is about 50 years older than this house, and they were able to reintroduce that roof onto the structure and adaptively reuse that structure into an office space. So there's usually a structural way to be able to accomplish that skirts the need to do total replacement.
Okay. Make a motion. I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 2600000167 for the property located at 2106 North Jefferson Street to the Monday, June 1st ARC meeting at 5:30 p.m. With the intent that the applicant present more information concerning preserving historic fabric to the greatest extent possible.
And if I could add, notably the front of the house, the roof structure, and any other, but those two main things.
And preservation of the chimney.
And preservation of the chimney.
So amended.
He's good. I think,
So who seconded? Okay. All right, so we have a second. Any discussion?
do you need to ask him if he?
I will. I was going to see if there's anything else. Okay. Mr. Rios, do you understand?
Yes, I understand the continuance, I get that. I just, if there's maybe some more specific deliverables on the front wall, we'd love to know what those might be. And you know, again, I'm completely fine, you know, trying to preserve that roof, trying to preserve that chimney. You know, I think those are the biggest contending points here, and of course, hoping for a condition, but I understand that continuance is more in line, so that's fine. I just would look for deliverables, and maybe I'll work directly with Dennis for that. So that's all.
Is there anything, do you want to add anything?
No, I think it's completely understood between staff and the applicant what's being expected.
Okay, so work with staff. All right, so we have a motion that's been seconded for continuance to June 1st. Looking for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. All right, good luck.
See you again soon.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila. I am a planner with Historic Preservation. Our last agenda item is ARC-26-00000173. This is for the address of 829 Bayshore Boulevard. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The certificate of appropriateness request is for a modification to the structure. We're going to elevate it as it sits today. It's in FEMA's boundaries, and the structure received some water through the prior storms. Part of the request is we're going to reposition the primary structure. Instead of relocating it using the word that we use mostly, we're just going to move it up 4 foot. You'll see in the drawings why it needs to be moved up. Now that that their structure's being raised. Vertical accessibility is required. They need to put some stairs there. The accessory structure and the primary structure are in close proximity, which you'll see in the photos that I'll share with you now, and with some site improvements. The underlying zoning is RS 60. The primary structure was built in 1918, which is a contributing structure, and it takes on the frame vernacular architectural style. So I always start with the Sanborn map from 1929. Property in question is on Bay Shore. It's on the front of the storms coming in. So as I stated, it did take in some water, and they're trying to lift it up now. So it's out of that element. You have South Boulevard that comes down north and south, and then you have Boulevard over here. So it's in between Boulevard, South Boulevard on Bay Shore. This is showing the proximity here. And by them repositioning it up 4 feet, he has some diagrams to show that it's still in line with one abutting structure. The other structure has been removed, but it's in line, so it's not out of character. This is how the structure sits today. You see that it has a very wide approach with the steps. It has a linear walkway coming up. This is not historically accurate. You see the columns that are here. So as they raise it up, they're going to have to put a handrail around there to meet code as well. That will be illustrated in the drawings. Here's just another kind of perspective of that. You see the Jeffersonian eyebrow that's engaged into that very massive cross gable roof. This is looking at the front elevation. There's a lot of vegetation on the side, but you see some of the damage from when the water came up. This is the south elevation in the front. This is the abutting structure on that side. So you'll see the dimensional setback that's established. This is looking at the front elevation and what I'm calling the north. The structure has been encapsulated with aluminum siding. You see that the overhangs have been encapsulated as well. So as part of this request, we're going to raise it up. As funds become available, they'll either reach out to staff or they'll be back in front of you for the rehabilitation of the structure. Down the vehicular drive, you see we talk about scoring a lot of times. The 5-foot sections here are very period appropriate. They're going to do some modifications to the driveway. All the access, vehicular access, will be from Bay Shore Boulevard. There's no garage door off the back or to the alley in the back.
There's access to the alley.
Okay.
Double-sided.
Okay. I was just informed that there's a double-sided, there's a garage door off the back. The accessory structure did take on some damage. We worked administratively to kind of correct some of those. As of now, they have not taken place. This is on Bay Shore Boulevard. You see it's on one of the turns. This is just right outside of their front property line. This is the rear. You see some damage out there from the storms as well. Here I wanted to point out the eave-to-eave separation. This is the accessory structure peeking into the picture, and then the eave of the overhangs of the primary structure. Just some more of the damage of the backyard as it still exists today after a year and a half. This is a little different perspective of that proximity that's there now. So by moving the primary structure forward 4 foot allows for that separation to meet building code. This is the alley behind the site, and there is a garage door off the back, so there is vehicular access from the alley as well. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, we'll have the agent address the board. Thank you for that.
I hear you. Hey, Ralph Schuler, 2401 North Howard Avenue, and I have been sworn. If you would put up the site plan for me, please. It's plugged in. Go ahead. PC, there we go.
Give us a minute. He's down here. You don't have it plugged in, right?
I have an HDMI too.
Yeah.
I have it in the USB, but I brought a HDMI just in case that didn't work. Always come prepared.
Your laptop's not connected.
Here, let's put the HDMI in instead. This is your HDMI, I'll use that one, that's great. How about now? Hey, there we go, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna do a little recap first, so you tell us how we got here. First, we had a storm, obviously, Hurricane Milton, brought in about 18 inches of water in this structure. You can see on the survey, the site is currently at the floor plan at 6.99 or 7 feet above sea level. About 18 inches came in. The previous owner let it sit and tried to do some unpermitted work. They were cited. The current owners who are before you today, who have hired me to assist them, have closed on this in early January, and want to do the right thing. But they also want to make sure that they have a house that, after potentially spending $1 million on, doesn't flood again. So FEMA requires the second you touch the house and or it's cited more than 50%. This currently was not cited for more than 50%, but once you decide to change the elevation of the house, you can't just willy-nilly do that. You have to meet FEMA standards. So this is in a V zone, a high velocity wind zone, because it's so close to Bayshore. So we have to elevate this to 13 feet. But 13 feet in a V zone means to the lowest horizontal member. So the lowest horizontal member, of course, on this, working with our structural lifting engineer, which is JAS. They've been before you before on a couple other houses, I believe, previously. Need to reinforce that structure, and then so ultimately the finished floor of this house would be at, and again, we'll have some ordering documents here, at 15 feet. So, and that is the absolute minimum that we need to go to make it to code, legal, and out of the floodplain. So with that, I want to then talk about some of the details. Obviously here on the site plan, we have an existing site. The garage, we're rehabilitating now. It's storage, so it doesn't have to be elevated off. It's a garage. The building is eave to eave is 4 feet-ish. It's hard to tell because the eave is very tall, and it's very hard to get the exact number. But what's going to happen is we're going to need to move this building forward small amount, as Ron said, 4 feet, because we need to have, of course, front and rear stair access. This is the proposed site plan. So with the building moved forward 4 feet, we still have more than 30-foot setback. The adjacent property is very similar to that. I've created so the aerial here. Again, these are at angles and curves and stuff, so none of it's very easily noticed or seen. But that setback varies to the house to the left, which is the red roof house. The house to the right has since been demolished. That house was a non-contributing structure and was flooded much worse. because it was on grade. So that house, I believe, a new structure has been proposed and approved. I don't personally know what that setback is. However, the RS60 zoning setback is 25 feet. So we're much, much deeper than that, and that's to the front porch. The other improvements we're looking at, the driveway is in poor condition. It's very old. It's not been maintained. So we're looking at replacing the driveway, and it's similar location. Let me go back. Here, if you notice on the old driveway, the apron doesn't match the other driveway. It's wonky. It doesn't align with the east side setback. So again, there's just a lot of issues with that driveway. So we're proposing a new, more to code appropriate apron that meets standards within the mobility department, and then a ribbon drive, so it's as diminutive as possible, to at least the facade of the main structure, and then score marks and additional regular, similar to kind of what's there today, but just improved to the existing garage. Then, of course, a new front walkway, new front stairs is required in the same similar location than what was there previously. Obviously, our structure is elevated. And then we currently have a side entrance for where the kitchen is, and the homeowner really wants to keep that, so we're giving a side entrance for where the kitchen door is now, and then a new rear porch, and again, we'll get to all the pictures here in a second on that, and then a rear access stair to the backyard. The demolition we're only really doing is what's required to make the structure work. We have a non-compliant or non-historic door to the left on that side door. We're going to replace it. We had some pictures from previously in a Sanborn that shows a pair of two 4-foot doors, a pair of doors, and then adjusting the new rear porch. This is a new elevated pier plan. The pier plan here is the same pier locations as the building is now, but of course we're going to have auger piles and grade beams and new contemporary piers that meet all of the requirements of the FEMA, which have to meet all of the water flow in and out, and will be structurally designed to meet that. We will obviously wrap all of this in a thin brick, which we'll get to next. But the new girder support system that we're showing here is going to be this additional 12 inches of LVL exterior grade girders supporting the existing approximately 12-inch deep support of the existing floor. We're doing some minor interior renovations, but mainly this, of course, is about elevating the structure. This is just the second floor, not replacing any windows, any doors other than what is being repaired now. Currently being repaired now under a permit is the front wall. The front wall was damaged significantly during the storm, and we're repairing the wall so it can be structurally sound for the lifting. So here is the kind of the meat and potatoes. Here's the existing west elevation and our proposed new west elevation after lifting. So this building has piers, but they're as a skirt board here around it, so they're hard to see. There's very vegetation all around, but essentially it goes almost to grade. Obviously, when we lift this structure, it's going to be difficult to have a skirt board that would go 8 feet down. So we're gonna have to amend that with just trim, new skirted trim. And if you can see, we have at the new pier foundation, we have a double line. One, and I'll have a section that kind of shows you that. We have a board that would cover the new LVL, and then another board, proud of that would cover the existing floor system. Of course, we have to add railings and stairs to code. The railings and stairs, we've looked at a number of other historic structures in the district, and our client likes this kind of crisscross detail within each bay. That is continued on all elevations. We have to raise the air conditioners above floodplain. We don't have a choice. They're required by code. That's a similar location where they are now, but probably the best location to disguise those. I'm interested in your opinion on how best to screen those. I don't personally have a great idea, because anything we do, I think, would look kind of hokey, but I'm open to your suggestions. Going to the east elevation, this is the one facing the driveway. The driveway, we're gonna have some sort of, access to underneath the house. We're not proposing to really park underneath it. We have a driveway, but we would want to obviously get access to it. I do currently show that maybe the pool pump might be slightly elevated because it's not required to meet FEMA regulations, but it'd be disguised underneath all of this new lattice work. And then, of course, you see the side existing kitchen door and its associated staircase, the front staircase, which is wider than the other staircases because it's an entrance, and then we're going to obviously take the existing chimney and elevate it, which I'm not the structural engineer, but JAS says that it's not a problem, that we'll elevate it, they'll support it, and then we'll reclad it as best as possible in the new part below in the original condition, and thinking maybe we might even have introduced a band or something there just so it's clear that where the old and the new started. But again, that's just something that popped in my head. Moving on to the front elevation, probably the most important. The existing Bayshore house as it sits now, as Ron alluded to, the front elevation and the front stairs are not original. These stairs and the deck are composite currently. We're gonna remove all of the non-appropriate composite decking and redo it with 5-quarter teak tongue and groove decking, wood. And then you can see again at the front elevation, we have to, of course, we have a pool, so we have to have some pool fencing. That's going to be, I can show that back on the site plan. It's pushed back kind of behind the front porch. The lattice work is situated at the main part of the building, so the lattice work would not be directly under the porch, is what we're proposing. Obviously, we would landscape this heavily so you can help disguise and transition some of this, but because it's in a FEMA flood zone, I have very limited abilities because all this has to be either breakaway walls or lattice work. And then we're doing some other minor restoration, but the intent here is for the owner to pay for the initial phase, is get the building elevated, get the building livable, and then work with staff on the restoration of the original siding within the next 3 to 5 years, not today. it's just extremely cost prohibitive. All the other windows and all the other parts of the building are in actually pretty darn good condition. The structure is in relatively good condition considering it was flooded. So we are very confident that that's going to be successful. And then here's on the rear, again, a side and a rear stair here that takes you to the pool. We had the original door was between those two larger doors on the back, which was here. And now we're going to move, and I can go back to the west elevation, put a new pair of doors and a new rear porch that matches the roof line exactly, just another side gable, and the same kind of trim detail and small arch as the front porches, and then of course the same kind of detailing. Obviously here on this house, what's very big is these extremely large overhangs. They're nearly 4 feet, and we absolutely will want to restore and expose all of that. We just, again, not sure we have the money for it today. I wanted to go back so you can see here on the west, that porch here is a new addition. That's really the only, quote, new part of this project that isn't really part of the lifting of the house, which is the stairs, the piers, the foundation, and the decorative lattice work. Oh, what happened? There we go. So these are two kind of simple sections because everything on the typical elevated section, everything above the existing building, which is the floor joists, and above is existing. What we're proposing on the new is, as required, is this new girder support system of the main piers and supports. We have to be at that 13-foot minimum mean sea level design flood elevation, which is exactly at that position. And then everything below that is going to be, of course, a new pile foundation, probably grade beams. This hasn't been 100% fully developed on exactly how the structural parts of this, which will be below grade anyways and won't be seen. And then the new PT wood lattice with 1x4 border framing. And this is all real wood lattice. This is not some, composite junk. And then a typical porch section with a balustrade and a top rail and a mid rail, and then our, of course, crisscross detail in the center of each bay, and then of course all the piers will be wrapped with thin brick to all the way around, because there's no way to not do that on these things, because it's going to be seen from different angles. So, in conclusion, I think these clients again took on an amazingly challenging project. That this is not a cheap house. It's on Bayshore, and we're gonna spend a considerable amount of money here on the initial phase to get this thing to where it is safe and secure, and meets all current code and regulations for a house in the flood zone, and then continue to work with staff in the future to deal with our non-compatible siding. With that, I'll take questions.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm a planner with Historic Preservation. And working with the agent and the owners, it was a challenging project to get to this point. Staff's finding that the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and adaptation within structures within a flood zone. we use these standards here as we've become more knowledgeable with structures that are being elevated. This is the cover of the structure. This is what we're trying to alleviate. So within these guidelines here, we go to certain sections, and I always start with page 76. And you've heard me time and time again that there is no one universal standard or measurement of how to raise these homes. They have these illustrations that are very helpful. There's some that are less aggressive in the approach and the height that is required. And then within these guidelines, there are some examples that I go to more often, and where the house is lower and it needs to be raised. You see the lattice below, you see the structural elements that are incorporated, you see the railing that is absent where it's at and needs to be expressed to meet code, and then the central approach. We try to keep the ceremonial entrance in the place that it was originally, if possible. Sometimes that's not possible. In reading through all these, I'm not going to bore you with that, but I wanted to show you some of the illustrations that I go to in the pages that I use. There were some conditions associated with this request. He's hit most of them. He talked about the mechanicals. As you raise them up, they're going to be seen. We tried to put them on the back side of the porch, but that's for additional discussion. The fencing he showed, as I stated earlier, fencing, there's 4 components to that. You look at the location, as indicated on the site plan. You look at the height, that it meets City of Tampa code. You look at the materials, that meets the Hyde Park design guidelines, and you meet the design, and you look at the design as well. So I think that he has that information and he could share that with you now. It's very important as I go to these standards here and you look at, as you raise the house, it's really an addition is what they're doing. And that addition should be delineated with some kind of trim board or something. He's got 2 horizontal boards in there that he pointed out. Maybe there's further discussion required there too, but he's putting that as his datum line that's showing everything above it was original, everything below it is new. He did a good job of his illustration in compliance with the standards that we have. On page 5, the last part of the staff report, we talk about roof materials and overhangs and wall materials. That's a generic list that we usually put on here. That list is really not part of this requirement today. I would look at what's important here is the porch materials that he's incorporating into the new project, and the foundation and the enclosure of those materials. And he stated some of that. So lastly, I like to leave, he has the ceremonial walkway from Bay Shore, and then he has his steps going up. If you look, that the front door is a little off-center. I'm sure one of the architects caught that, and he has a reason for that. I want him to explain that to a part of the presentation to make sure that it is acceptable to you. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Ron. I don't believe we have anybody in the audience, in the public to speak, so we will go on to questions, and I'll start on my left. I think it's your turn.
Okay. First, I commend these folks for buying this house, knowing what they're about to get into. So a couple of questions. I caught that the stairway does not go straight up to the front door. So
Yeah.
why is that?
So, the existing stair, much smaller, clearly, and the existing walkway are centered on the front elevation of the porch columns. The door is proud to the right.
Can you put the
Yep,
plan up, please?
yep. So, in keeping with the historic standard based on where the walkway is today, we're putting the walkway essentially, we're gonna replace it because it's old and in need of repair. It's gonna go in the exact same location, and we've made the stair, of course, wider than these other stairs, 6 feet wide. That's approximately what the width of the walkway is today. So this opening here,
Yeah.
this is centered on that opening. And that's how it is in the existing house.
Okay, so was any thought given to doing it any differently to where it would capture more of the front door, or?
So I live in a house, no, not 8 feet in the air, that does exactly the exact same thing, where I have a central staircase that's centered on a porch, and then I veer to the left to enter my front door. I think not every house is exactly the same. Many houses go right in, some houses don't. This house has always been this way, and if we were to move the stair to the right, of course then, which I personally like is, and I think my client does too, the symmetry and our crisscross design, we get that makes you feel like those are four bays, even though they're really two small and one large bay. And I just think the assemblage of all of those parts just seem to work the best.
Okay, I'm gonna let the architects ask more questions about that. The brick, do you know what color the brick is gonna be for the?
It'll be
original?
just a dark red brick. We're happy to submit a sample to staff.
Okay, and then how about the lattice? What's the proposed?
So the lattice is again, a built lattice, 1x2 lattice, and horizontal and vertical with a trim board around it. There'll be a center, each pier varies, but each pier is approximately 8 to 9 feet apart from each other. We'd have a center post between those lattice, a wood post that would separate those two bays, and that's how it would be supported. Now, all this has to be breakaway.
Yeah, and what's the color? Have they chosen a color?
More than likely just be white, like the trim color.
Okay. Okay, I had one other question, but I can't think of it right now. Yeah, that's it for right now. Thank you.
Evening.
Hi.
What do the porch columns on the rear look like? Could you bring up the rear porch columns?
Sure. So you're talking about the new porch?
Yeah, because the old porch, the front porch is, those columns are really distinctive and unique.
Yes,
So
we're
I'm
going
just looking at what the rear
mimic this rear porch as identical as possible to the front porch, in its trim, in its design, you can see the arch and the columns.
Do we have a photograph of the existing columns? Because there seem to be like almost like two columns connected at the halfway point. Is that how they are on the front porch?
Yeah, hold on.
I'm seeing here. Yeah. I don't know what that is. I can't tell what it is. Is that the mailbox?
Yeah, there's an old mail, which is gone. That's a mailbox.
It's a trim piece. Yeah, okay. Oh, it's a mailbox. Okay. So
The
those
new-
are just square. Those are the existing columns are square box columns.
Correct.
Okay. There's nothing fancy about them. Okay. Can you zoom into the railings?
Sure. Hold on.
Please.
Yeah, hold on. I have to get yelled at escape, and then plus. Give me a second. I'm getting
It's
it.
just not very. Yeah, it's not very clear on our monitors here. So
So hold on, and you.
go one more in, maybe, and then
Yeah.
pan down.
Yeah, hold on. This is not my laptop, so give me a second.
That's the existing handrail. This is the existing elevation. Okay, that's good, right there. Would you consider, you see the lattice at the top of the gable? See how that beautiful like vent, attic vent?
Yep.
Lattice?
Yep.
I think personally, and would you consider even, that those center medallions in the new railing, maybe try to steal from that and put that in the railing as a kind of like a tie-in to the decoration. Does that make any sense?
So
The
I've been in this house
crisscross thing
many,
just
many
seems-
times. I'm just trying to remember exactly how that is constructed.
But the crisscross things just, it seems like it's introducing a foreign element to the house architecture. That's all.
So
And I'm trying to find some other.
Yeah, so, Ron's
Something
bringing
else
this
to-
up. So that's really just lattice work, you
Right.
see there,
I'm just
my-
asking a question. You know,
Yeah, well, and my, response would be, we have a lot of lattice work down below, and I really don't think we need more lattice work. Now, if we feel that the crisscross is not appropriate,
Or maybe a flat arch piece or something to tie that railing detail into the architecture of the house and not just introduce something brand
Okay,
new and completely foreign.
and I'm on board with that.
Okay, that's all. I'm just asking if you consider it, that's all.
Yeah, I'm
Okay?
just not 100% certain we need more lattice when we have, frankly, so much lattice that's gonna be a bullet point.
I hear that, I hear that. Can you bring up the garage doors? The two garage elevations, new and
Yep.
existing,
Yep.
next to each other.
Give me a second.
I know I screwed you up by asking you to zoom in.
No, it's not a problem. I just gotta take my time. Not a problem. Okay, and then
You're changing the garage doors, am I correct? Did I
yeah,
read that right in
it's
the
already,
drawings?
that's already been approved, but yeah, hold on.
The garage door change has been approved? Okay.
Yeah, that came in on a separate application. We did that administratively to button that up.
Okay, I just was, I saw a difference in the two
But
elevations.
just to reinforce your concerns, I think, this sits back 100 and something feet from the property line, plus we engage the lights on the top, so it breaks up, the visual.
I just really like garage doors, so.
Garage is a masonry garage, it's an existing masonry garage.
Right.
We don't know the exact date it was constructed, it was definitely post-World War II.
Okay.
And it has some interesting little corbel detailing above it, and it's kind of a little funky, little curvy roof.
I saw the roof.
Everything's just completely
Roof
different about
shape,
this
yeah.
thing than the rest of the house.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So we had the 15 feet. Oh, the only thing I think is the chimney, and what's it clad in? Is it a brick chimney now, or is it stucco? What is it?
It's a stone, yeah, it's.
Again, I don't have photographs.
Yeah, hold on, I
They're
have.
clear. Even
It's
the
brick,
ones in
it's brick.
in the
It's
staff
brick,
report.
it's brick. It's painted, but it's brick.
It's painted brick.
Right.
Okay.
So we would essentially mimic that on the bottom.
I understand. And I think what would be appropriate even would be like, if it would be like either a brick recess or even a projecting brick.
Yeah, or like maybe a soldier course or something.
Yeah, or something to separate the two.
Yeah,
Right,
and
okay.
I'm with you on that.
Okay, that's it. I don't really have any other questions.
So can I just ask Ron? Yeah. I'm sorry. So Ron, real quick, the height that it's being raised, how is that in relation to the house on the side that's there?
We asked for a street elevation
Yeah.
for him to provide that. I don't know if he has it, but regardless of that, he's raising it to the minimum possible. He's not going above that. So the new measurement for the Florida building, permits is from finished floor up. So basically, he's just getting what's there and raising it up. No variances are needed or being requested to move it there. So to get it out of harm's way, it is what it is, but we always like to see that elevation. Do you have that?
So that, but the.
Right, the new one is
Right,
higher.
yeah, so that was my next question. The empty lot, that house came before us, and from what I recall, it's gonna pull into the front, and there's actually a large space in the front of that house, and that house is pretty tall.
It did not require a variance, if I recall correctly, but yes, the overall scale and massing will kind of dwarf what that happens here.
Okay, and just so it's clear for posterity's sake,
Yeah.
that we're raising this, and the other approvals that we've done for raising homes on Bay Shore have been at a minimum of what FEMA requires, and that those other homes that have been raised have been at that minimum, if not a little bit more.
And/or new construction is at that level too. I want to put something into the record too. Last week, the staff, Elaine, Heather, and myself were able to go to a seminar, an 8-hour seminar that was on coastal floods elevations. And they were talking about the minimum that's required there. And we look at the minimum that's required as the request today, but they said don't get too hung up on the minimum, because sometimes you got to go a little bit above that minimum. So for in the future, if somebody says this is the minimum and they want to raise it up another foot or something because the new FEMA standards are going to come forward in the next 2, 3, 5 years, whatever, I think you need to take that in consideration as well.
Okay, and then moving the house forward 4 feet visually with the house next door.
It's spot on. It's there. As he stated, he's RS 60. The setback from the property line is 25. He's at 30 and in line. And that's why I showed Bayshore Boulevard. Sometimes you say, why is he showing that picture? He's on that bend. You really don't understand kind of what's going on there, because there's people jogging, rollerblading, speeding, everything else. So you're just trying to get there. But in comparison, it's only 4 foot and it's in line.
And then the other house that's to be constructed, again, I recall that the entrance is closer to this side where this house is than on the other side.
pretty good
Am I
memory, yeah.
recalling that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like this house is gonna be right next to the other house being built. That other house is on the.
They have some
starts
separation.
on the other side of the property.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to just clarify something on the front elevations, talking about the steps and the entry. If you could pull that up.
Yep, hold on.
And look at the existing condition. All right, so just as a point of clarification, the entry, the steps go from that column to column, right? It's the handrail that is really
And the handrail's not
more
original.
to the door, and the handrail is not centered on anything. And I think that the handrail was not original to the house, at least from what it looks like to me.
So the current stairs are not original either.
Right.
But we do know, let me finish, I'm sorry for interrupting, but the stairs originally, because we have a picture, did go all the way across, but had a slight curve to them, and they were concrete.
Yeah. But I just wanted to just kind of clarify and make sure that I understood that the current steps going up are from column to column, and so centered within that bay.
Correct.
And that is what the addition, the proposed renovation, your stairs are centered in that bay, just as these steps are.
Yes.
Okay.
They're just narrower.
Yep, thank you.
But they're the same width as the walkway that goes up to them.
The current walkway, correct. But we're gonna replace the walkway just because it's in poor condition.
But you're gonna,
it's like for like.
But you're gonna keep it in the same place.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? It's not required.
No, I'm not a big fan of thin brick.
Okay.
But of course, that's up to you. I'm not gonna, belabor that point, but there's also stucco and it doesn't have as many joints, it's like, but that's all up to you. Along with the design of the lattice work, most of which is going to be in great shadow, right?
Correct, yes.
Because the lattice work is going to be.
Pulled back.
Okay,
Yes.
how far is it gonna be pulled back? Is it
Currently have it about 8 to 10 inches.
Oh, 8 to 10 inches?
Right.
Okay. All the way around the house?
All the way around.
Okay, all right, I was thinking that it would be under the front wall of the house, so the porch, but the lattice, okay.
It is.
I'm thinking I was thinking in the wrong way, okay.
The front porch, it's not under the front porch, the lattice is in,
Yeah,
under
yeah,
the
so
main
the,
house
it,
wall.
it's on the front, here, let me show the right
It's
drawing.
way back.
Let me show the right drawing.
And the point of that, you're thinking of that, is to get it to recess as much as possible?
Yes. Come on, behave.
Side elevation shows it.
There. Hold on. No, I'm gonna show you this other drawing, which will help. So this drawing, that solid line, that solid line is the location of the lattice work. So it's around the main house only. The front porch and the back porch do not have any lattice work.
They're open.
While you're on that, where is the fence on the,
Yeah,
I guess,
so-
the left side? Where does that hit?
Yeah, that's the other drawing. Hold on.
Well, no, but just show me on this drawing.
Well, it's not that easy.
Could be.
All right, I'm getting there, I promise. Should have brought a mouse between you and me.
You can grab the cursor and drag it up too.
Yeah, I am. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, let's start. This drawing here, the fence is at the very back line, which is one to like 2 full bays back from the front of the house there, and then of course between the accessory structure, garage, and the main house. Those are the 2 locations of the wood fence.
So you plan on keeping it at that column?
Yes, that's where it is currently, but we're gonna rebuild it
Well, I
and
understand
redo
you're
it.
moving it 4 feet, but it's still gonna hit that column.
Right, it's
Got
still
it.
in the same location of the house. Yes,
Got
we're
it.
moving the house forward. It's a new fence.
Got it, okay. I interrupted.
So now I'm having difficulty with the location of the fence underneath the front porch, because you've told us that it now will be like 8 to 12 feet back. It will be
the
under,
lattice work.
The lattice work will be underneath the front wall of the house,
The main, yes.
not underneath the porch, not underneath the porch.
Currently, if we feel that's a problem, we can address it.
Okay. To me, it is odd. I haven't
Okay.
thought about that, because I like that you're setting it back. The lattice work is effectively behind the columns, right?
Everywhere, yes, it's effectively 8 to 10 inches back from the face of the house.
And the columns are,
The columns are about 16 by 16.
Okay. All right, so halfway back, but.
Well,
so
again, we
can all
can
argue
push
about
it back
that, but-
a few more
yeah.
inches if you want. It's no big
Yeah.
deal.
Okay, well, I'll just leave that open if anybody else wants to walk in there. Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I just have one, I think, very brief question, but I can't help but comment on that in a former life, I nearly bought this house in 2016. And I opted for a different house in the district that didn't flood.
So you know
But
the house well.
yes, I do know the house very well, and I also applaud the owners for what they're endeavoring to do. It is a lovely house, and it deserves to be cared for and rehabbed, so I appreciate that. Coincidentally, my house also has a peculiar entry that is offset from the front door. In this case, though, I think as in mine, it's not as pronounced because it's lower to the ground. Once you elevate it, I like my colleagues finding that appearance disconcerting, and it has such a beautiful entryway. And I'm not going to at all attempt to design that, but that narrow stair approaching and being so off-center from the door, it almost looks like a mistake. And we can talk amongst ourselves about it. My one question was just on the east elevation.
Okay.
And I assume this is existing conditions. You have that kitchen door that is
Yeah, let me
opening
get
out
there.
to the stairwell that'll go down to the driveway, and there's 2 windows. It looks like the window is right on top of the door.
Yeah, hold on.
Again, I presume that's existing, or,
Yeah, all of these,
yeah.
you're
that-
talking about
that-
this window right here.
Yes,
Right here,
sir.
that window. Yes, that is the way it is.
That is
That
the
is the
way
way
it
it
is.
is, yes, ma'am. It is very close to the door, I agree with you, but
Yep, okay. Very good.
quirks of a 110-year-old
Been
house.
that way a long time. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you to the owners for making the investment on this house. We appreciate it. The boards, the bands, the double bands.
Right.
Can you just show me that
Yep,
detail one more time?
sure,
Because they're in a different plane, different vertical plane, correct?
correct. Let me see if I can,
And just zoom in,
yeah, let me
please.
see if I can zoom in, yeah, let me.
So is it just the thickness of the top board? That's how much it's set back in?
Right now, I'll be honest, it's a little schematic. I mean, if we feel we want a little more, or, you know, if that's a 5/4 board versus a 3/4 board, I'm open to whatever we think is right.
My first thought is that it's gonna fade away and appear like it's just a one big board with like, you know what I mean? So maybe doing a little bit more of a recess might give it a
Well, I
little
have to
bit more
get
character.
structurally, we have to have the new, the new LVLs under the existing exterior wall. So what I would have to do is fake it a little bit and make the old, well, there's really no board there currently. Make the top board proud a little bit more, which I'm happy to do, and have a slightly larger, you know, top board to accommodate that.
Okay, and put your proposed site plan up. I just want to be real clear on what other site improvements that you're doing, because it looks like the pool's staying exactly the same.
Yeah, we're not touching
And
the pool.
Yeah, and it looks like it's really just your stairs and your
Yep.
driveway and your front wall.
Correct. Yeah, you're essentially correct, but we're almost there, I promise. Yeah, the existing pool and the pool deck remain, as is. The driveway, of course, is new, the front steps are new, the stairs are new, and the fencing is new. But-
Okay.
But that's essentially the extent of the renovations.
Okay, all right, so I've got two more real minor issues. One is the AC. I think you've got it in the best location, you know, more or less on that side of the house. And I know the railings, you're gonna have essentially double railings viewed from Bay Shore. My question is, viewing from your neighbor's house, and I get it's on a curve and it's tough to see. What do we think? What do we think, how much of that's gonna be visible?
So it's really how much effort, like lattice work or some other thing you want to try to, is that any better or worse? Because it has to be, you know, 10 feet in the air.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
and I have to have we're going to take some boards and extend, you know, from the structure and create a platform,
Yeah.
put it on there. Then, I mean, do you want me to put some of the same railing around it? I don't really know. I don't know if that's really any
My first
better.
reaction is sometimes it becomes more noticeable the more you try to hide it. And I think it's gonna take a lot of effort to even see it. Now
I
that we
agree.
brought it up, we will all notice it, but most people won't.
We're gonna,
So,
we're gonna,
like, I
we're
don't
gonna
think it's a.
drive by and point
Yeah.
at them.
Except
I
the
don't think it's a
neighbors.
major issue.
Except the neighbors, I think, outdoor living space is on that side.
Can you
Well,
just
there is
scroll
an
down a little
existing
bit so we can-
wall, there's an existing wall, now, again, the wall, I don't remember exact how tall the wall is, probably 6 feet, but this wall, this hatch line here, that's an existing wall that's owned by the neighbor, I believe. And then we're gonna put our fence next to their wall. You know, again, I don't have the ability to put it any lower than it is because it's required by code. So I don't know how to, you know, plant something around it, I don't know, put.
Well, I was just bringing it up.
Yeah,
And
no,
my
I-
last question, I want to belabor the point of those stairs one more time. You said it's 6 feet wide.
6 feet wide.
Did you explore going wider to a nominal dimension of 8 or 10
Yeah,
or
look,
12?
if as a board, we think we want to go a little wider, 8 feet, I'm comfortable with 8 feet. Anything more than that, I think now you're gonna get so wide, you might want to feel like you need an intermediate center rail, which I don't think would be appropriate. So, we have to have one handrail by code in a residential structure, which I would want to do. If you get any wider than 8, you're gonna want to put a second rail in, and then at one point, does it just feel too big? So,
Yeah.
but I'm comfortable with up to 8 feet, I believe.
Okay, that's all the questions I had. Did you have something?
I just would like for you to, I would like for you to bring up the front elevation again.
Sure.
Just to look at the other commissioner's comments about the location of the lattice.
Okay.
So, just again, just to point this out, that the way we're looking at this is the lattice is going to be deeply recessed.
Correct.
And we're going to be seeing piers mostly.
Right.
All right.
And what's deceiving about this is the fence is shown grayed back, but it's at the same distance essentially. No, it's
No,
farther
it's
back.
actually one bay
Yeah, it
further
is
back.
farther back.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
one
that
bay
fence is
back.
one bay further back than the second line, which is
Yeah.
which is where the main house is supported. So you have kind of 3 levels there that you're seeing between the front column, the main column, and then of course the fence is at the 3rd bay of columns.
You're gonna have a pretty substantial amount of landscaping. in front,
Yes.
I would think.
I was gonna say,
But why did you put the lattice so far back then?
volunteer.
What's
Put the what?
What's the purpose of the front lattice then? If it's so
What-
far
what-
back
so
underneath the home?
again, the lattice is to, yes, have a secured, there could stuff underneath.
to the back.
It would
Yeah.
look
It's a
super
fence,
silly
essentially.
if you didn't have any lattice. I don't believe that would be
Yeah.
appropriate. And we have to have a breakaway condition. Again, if the board feels extremely, strong about this, I'm willing to explore bringing it forward. Personally, I like it here, obviously, or else I wouldn't have presented it. We also have the rear porch that does the exact same thing. We're gonna have landscaping. Is it gonna be 8 feet tall? I don't know. We haven't hired a landscaper yet. Let's get through this part of the project. And
Ron, what did we do with the other homes that were raised up? I think they all had lattice near.
Around the perimeter as indicated on, the illustrations that I show as well.
Yeah, closer to where the piers are.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, because I think, again, I'm not an architect, but I think it's gonna look a little odd coming around the corner and seeing open area.
It'll also be black. It'll be just in absolute, total darkness all the time. Nothing will grow under there.
Yeah, it'll be gravel
It'll
or
be
something.
muddy or
Yeah.
gravel or
The only thing
something.
that throws me off, and again, I know it's because it's a drawing, is that the lattice is not in that 4th bay, and it's the fence. And I
Right.
think from a elevation drawing perspective,
Right.
showing all
and
4
in
would look
perspec-
more appropriate. But in reality, I think landscape is gonna do the job, and I understand why it's not there. So, but we're still in the question, so.
Right.
Are there any other questions?
Would you consider relocating those HVAC units to the rear of the house and just extend the refrigerant piping, which is all it really would take? And I think that would maybe resolve the fact that it's facing your neighbor's yard, and they can now see it over that fence, that wall that's there.
Let's look at the rear real quick then.
I'm just asking if you'd consider it. we're
Yeah,
not trying to.
I'm not saying I wouldn't consider it, but let's look at it together. Look a little further. So the only place it could really go would be between these 2 windows, and you would walk underneath it at that staircase, which I'm not in love with.
And you're gonna see it from the pool.
it would be very unsightly at the pool. I mean, extremely unsightly. The side yard there, which is gonna be landscaped and look really nice, and, you know, I mean, can we put, Italian cypress trees along that west side?
No, I
right there?
understand.
I don't, you know.
I think the question is that, you know, we're concerned now that they're 15 feet in the air, what your neighbor's now having to look at that he doesn't have to deal with now, nor does he have to deal with the sound now, because there's a wall between your two properties. And it's keeping them in the exact same place, and you have every right to raise them up. I'm just asking if there isn't a better solution. Or can they be wrapped in the railing, like
Yeah, again,
I'm
if we,
like
as a
a
group.
Juliet balcony or something else like that?
If we, well, I don't really have any ability to make a Juliet balcony, but I could certainly do railing like the front porches and wrap it in railing.
Something.
If we feel that that's a better solution. I'm perfectly happy to do that.
One more, sorry. While this drawing is up, I'm just looking at how the location of the lattice, right? You know, just keeping that in mind. Doesn't bother me so much from that angle, but.
So this lattice, of course, is at the back of the house. And then this porch in the back, which is gonna be usable underneath here, because at the pool deck, it's usable. It's tall enough you can walk underneath it, and it's gonna be an asset, both at the ground level and the main living level.
Has there been any communication with the neighbor or not directly?
Very nice. They said we're here half the year and we don't care if you live at the house.
I didn't quite hear.
She's saying she's talked to them, but they have no issue with her lifting the house. But, I mean,
Okay.
beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you so choose.
Really don't have any rebuttal. Again, we're very open to any minor tweaks that you guys, you know, think are deemed appropriate, so we can get a certificate of appropriateness and move on. But we appreciate your comments and look forward to working with you to get this project a successful approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. At this point, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing and move on to discussion. Floor is open.
So I think that something should be done in the front. Because what happens if some of that vegetation dies? Now you're seeing open area underneath the porch, which is kind of how you see out at the beach, right? I mean, these open areas underneath.
Yeah,
There needs to be
looks very
something
beachy.
there.
It's looking
Which
like
I
a
don't
beachy
think,
thing.
yeah.
Something there, so when you're driving by, and understood there's gonna be, you know, healthy landscaping in front of it, but just, so it's not open. If a tree dies, it's just not open up while they're waiting to replace the tree.
There's an aspect of this being an extrusion of the current foundation system, right? That's what it's kind of like doing. And the current foundation system is solid under the porch. And we're not extruding that now. We're pushing that extrusion back to the face of the main house, when actually the front porch right now is solid. It's not open underneath. And I think that's the better place for it, and I think that's what we've done and approved on other houses that have been raised. We know this is the fourth case now, I think we've been talking with, third or fourth. And yeah, you know, it is not a simple or easy question, you know, because of the height and the mass that this creates. But I think extruding the existing porch perimeter with shielding is the right thing to do architecturally. And it would also prevent, like you said, that's all gonna be, whatever's under there is not growing. Nothing's gonna grow under there in the shade anyway. So it might as well be latticed off and be secured space.
Yeah, I think that's the better solution is bringing that out. I like your term of extruding it up. And so I think with that and widening the stairs to 8 feet, I'm good with it.
I think those are two good moves.
Yeah.
So if you make them 8 feet, then does the stairway end up ending in the middle of the door?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I think that that's okay, that it's not centered on the door, because the door's in another plane. All right, the
Okay.
door's gonna be in shadow most of the time.
You're gonna see the porch and the railings.
You're gonna see the columns and you know, the front fascia of the porch and the arch, and that is centered. I mean, no, at first I started to say you could go either way, but no, I feel pretty strongly that this is the right solution and bringing it right up the center.
I think it enables you to have a sense that the door is not explicitly cut off by the stairwell right now. It opens by 2 feet. You'll start to, the door becomes more accessible from the stairs, as opposed to now you're going up the stairs and making sort of a right turn. At this point, you can sort of arc.
I also don't
It's
think
not
we should.
it's not an extraordinary scenario. I have it at
Right.
my
I don't think
home,
we should
but this,
specify the width either. I should say.
I do
you know,
think
I
it's too narrow.
Suggest that that they explore wider
Widening it,
solutions, okay,
yeah.
without specifying the
Because
exact number
they
of
did say
dimensions.
that the original house
It was
had-
full width.
It was full width,
Yeah.
that was curved.
Yeah.
That would be a
Can't do
bit
that.
much.
Can't do that.
I'm not saying do that, but do something that kind of has that feel.
That would be a
Has that
concert
feel.
venue is what that would be.
Type of feel of a little
I like the
grander
Yeah.
entrance that the house originally had.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure it was lovely.
So the other
Yeah.
thing, we talked about the demarcation on the chimney, and
Yeah.
then exploring the banding, a little bit more detail on the banding. And we can explore the AC screening, so, if it's
I think the
deemed
banding is really important, that there should be a good shadow line
There-
there.
there- yeah.
However you do it, even if you were to put some, some piece of trim on the. on the first-
Another piece of trim,
on the-
yeah.
On the first board at the bottom, just so you could get more shadow right below it.
All right, somebody preparing
Here comes
He's
one.
making notes.
you don't have to present in written form.
But a beautiful home, definitely, and
Oh, yeah,
distinctive.
no, I'm not,
And distinctive.
As soon as the
Which
house
is
came up, I
wonderful.
leaned over to my
Yeah.
fellow commissioner over here, and said, I love that particular house on Bay Shore. I've been here for 20 years and go down Bay Shore all the time, and I love that house. So I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing for ARC 2600000173 for the property at 829 Bay Shore Boulevard, with the following conditions: that the applicant add some shielding of some kind to the HVAC units to shield them from being visible to the neighbors, that you consider widening the front stairway to a proportional dimension, that you explore increasing the banding depths so that there's more of a shadow line, and that you consider changing the coursework at the chimney addition to distinguish new from existing, and that you consider moving the lattice work to represent the current footprint underneath the current footprint of the house. Was there any other conditions? Was that it?
do you want that lattice work for the entire perimeter or just the front section? Or they expressed the desire to have the rear inset to have more functionality.
I don't have a problem with the rear, because it's not visible to the public, so just the front porch.
The only thing I would say is that the front sidewalk should match whatever the width of the stairs ends up.
And with the front sidewalk also would be altered to match the width of whatever stair width was determined. Because, based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that it preserves the existing house materiality and scale while raising it to achieve FEMA required dimensions.
All right, so we have a second. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you. Do you agree, understand the conditions and agree?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. All right, the motion passes.
Congratulations, good luck.
Congratulations.
We'll all be watching.
Well, it's on Bay Shore. I mean, come on.
Yeah, all right. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to receive and file submitted documents and exhibits.
So moved.
All right, second. All right, second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Well, hold on one second.
Yep.
You're on your agenda, the date and time. Is there something we're supposed to do with that?
No,
Oh.
it's informational.
Oh, okay. All right. Ms. Post?
I have an announcement to the group. I have a temporary but extended engagement with the city that will begin later this month. So I will be required to step down from the commission for that duration, obviously leaving the seat vacant, and I presumably hope that someone will assume the seat in my absence. Perhaps I can rejoin at some point. I would love to, but we'll have to see. Not during the course of this engagement. So I do want to thank everyone for their support. I want to thank the staff for the work that they do, and I hope that someone will carry the torch that you all know that I advocate for. And I want to hear about permeable and impermeable surface inquiry.
Can you call in on Zoom?
I might do that. So, for sure.
Well,
So thank you.
We appreciated all your insight and your passion, and you will be missed.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll be keeping an eye out.
I don't think you're gonna be replaced, honestly.
Good.
Well, thank you.
All right. With that, the meeting is adjourned.